I'm telling you, man, this is one of the weirdest things ever. I
Oh
know. I
yeah.
mean, I realize it's Thursday. It's cold,
hmm
and it
So
suddenly
happy
feels
it's
like fall.
Thursday.
Yeah, but then we're gonna start going back into being hot again next week, and
Yeah.
just I don't understand this weather roller coaster. I mean, next week is November, man.
Well, I think we can all just agree though that climate change was just a plot that liberals came up with to make us feel bad about things. Because
I've I've
obviously this is
I've heard
totally
many
the
many
way that
rumors about that.
nature
Hmm.
way that nature intended all of this to go. Hey everybody, welcome to a tech podcast.
With very badly timed and very badly choreographed intro,
In very
as
poor taste.
in very poor. I mean, a good weather, but poor taste
I'm just
nonetheless.
saying my sinuses can't handle this swing from hot to cold to hot to cold to hot to cold
Had a
because
cold,
nature
man.
doesn't know what the heck to do
Uh-uh,
with
uh-uh.
this kind of temperature
And,
issue.
and
So
we're seeing more and more massive climate systems flow through the Pacific, and it's getting me
yeah,
very worried, man. It's just,
it's pretty
anyways.
great.
But yes, welcome back to another beautiful. Well, I'm going to say beautiful, greatly organized and definitely planned podcast on
Heck
this beautiful
yeah,
Thursday, the last Thursday of this October 2023.
I
Although I
know.
don't feel like Techtober is ending with the end of October, but
Not even close.
no, no,
Again,
yeah.
like I don't think either of us slowed down for the summer because usually there's like a tech
A little bit.
doldrums in the summer.
It's
I
a
worked
little.
all the way through.
Yep.
And it seems like Techtober is going to just wind sprint all the way through the end of the year until we're going to be talking about CES. So,
Actually, speaking of which, I got my registration. I
oh,
figured,
good.
I figured even if I don't go, I'm not going to say that I'm not, but it's just the timing of it next year is a little bit off. I should at
hmm
least register. And if I did decide to, not decide to, figure out whatever's going on,
Sure.
at least I have that in there. And I think I got
For sure.
one of our favorite show events also that I got registered for. But yeah,
Nice.
it's crazy. It's crazy. And I will say this. Um, Realizing the fact that this week is the tech summit, the Snapdragon tech summit in Maui, um, and that today actually, I think it already ended. I think this is pretty much the end of the actual
Yeah.
tech summit. I think if overall it's a
Isn't
3 day
this
event.
the people that are there are now doing their like activity day or something like that? Like
Um,
a fun day of
there's,
relaxation at the end
I
of
think
the
that's true. No,
event.
no, I think for the most part that should, if memory serves me correct, today the way it ends with a luau. There's a big celebration at the end of the
Hmm.
event where essentially it's just a luau at the hotel. Although again, I don't know how the schedule's going on. For the most part, yeah, the events are over. They had some sessions today, and we're
hmm
starting to see some information on embargoed, benchmarks and
Yeah.
information as far as how the HN3 is going to be performing. And of course, we learned about a lot of stuff. Orion, namely,
hmm
specifically, I always find it funny. Apple had to throw a teaser for their fastest Mac ever.
How much fun did you have just in your brain that
Yeah,
Apple was like, we're doing an end of October scary fast event, and you're like,
yeah,
boy, Apple was scared
dude,
to
yeah.
quickly put out something that would try to steal some of the headlines away from Qualcomm. They were scary
Any
fast in
anything. I
getting that
think
out there.
Samsung, I think, was it a few years ago? Didn't they do their bespoke edition thing right around the same
Yeah.
time? They all try to
Well,
grab the limelight around it,
my
although they're
favorite,
partners.
I really feel the Samsung one was, oh no, Google put out a phone way cheaper than our FE edition. Bespoke. That's what we were always going to talk about was
That's
bespoke. But Apple finally looking like they might get a little competition in the silicon space is definitely concerning to them. Where they've had
I'm a little bit
two
skeptic
generations of
with.
MacBooks
Yeah,
that
yeah.
haven't had any competition in this niche at a
Hmm.
time where MacBook sales have now also joined the rest of the PC market in plunging like 30% year over year. So,
Because the reality of the matter is, and this is just from even from personal experience, I have a first generation MacBook Pro with the M1 series, not first
how
generation
dare
MacBook
you
Pro.
say that to me?
I
How
know,
dare you?
I know. Shh, close your ears, close your ears. Mommy and daddy are talking. Big,
Yeah, right, for
no,
sure.
no, no. I know. Um, and I'll be very honest. With everything that I've been doing with it and everything that I've needed out of it for performance and rendering, I haven't had the reason. There is no reason to go to an M2, and God forbid the M3 even. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're splitting hairs. We're at the point now where we're
hmm
talking about the silicon is so good that it's literally shaving off seconds. It's not shaving off minutes. It is not truly a reinvention of the wheel. For me, going from a Windows PC to an M1 Mac with DaVinci
Hmm.
Resolve, that to me was a leap, like a
Well,
light
and
year
that
leap in the
was the
future.
big exciting announcement
Yeah.
that is going to cause you to come crawling back and
Back.
dump that MacBook off the side of the road somewhere.
Oh, that
Was that
hot garbage.
DaVinci
Well,
Resolve got out the gates early and said 2024 they're going to be supporting Windows on ARM finally.
so I'm looking forward to midsummer 2024 when we first not only start seeing PCs with it, but also hopefully see DaVinci getting
Who
that
do you
support.
who do you think's going to be first? I wonder who,
Honestly,
because they've got launch
I
partners are HP, Dell, Microsoft,
I
or
didn't see
someone else. Oh,
MSI.
Lenovo.
Yeah,
I
yeah. Well, I
thought
mean, of
Lenovo
course,
had also
Lenovo. Yeah,
said,
Lenovo would more
but
than likely. I feel okay.
I,
So look, I think Lenovo will probably be first out the gate. If not,
okay.
because
I was going to say Microsoft. They actually embraced 8CX Gen 3 on the Surface Pro 9. I
well,
think it's
true.
how about this? How about
Yes.
this? The friendly wager. I think Microsoft will be first out the gate. You think Lenovo, and whoever is incorrect has to buy lunch for the victor. Something easy.
Okay, I could do that. I could do that. And I will say, yeah, I
And we're
agree with
committing it
you.
here to the podcast. We'll do a not a
Absolutely.
mukbang. We'll at least share some selfies of
We'll
one of us
we'll
buying
keep
the
the
other
budget.
lunch. But
We'll keep the
I'm
budget
on the
at.
record. I think Microsoft might actually eke out a win. I'm even doing this at the deficit
Okay, but
that
let me
they've
let's be
cut back on
specific.
the Surface team.
No, no, I'm
And I'm
totally with you.
still putting it out there that I think Microsoft might beat Lenovo to getting
Are
an
we talking
Orion,
about announcement, or are we talking about availability, like actual
a
availability
product
coming out?
actually shipping.
But
I don't care about
that's different.
announcements. You can't buy announcements.
Yeah, but come on, like no,
So
no, no. Yeah, but the reason why I'm saying this is like we're talking. I mean, we could talk Sony here, and we could just say, hey, the Xperia One Mark 7 is out, and you know what I mean. It could be
no,
a
but I
couple of
mean, like
months.
at some
Okay,
point something's gonna ship. So
actually shipping,
actually shipping, yeah.
where we're able to link to something at an actual store. I got it. Okay, so we're going
And
Lenovo for the mic.
JGJ, if because that's a fair that's a fair question. JGJ saying if we're both incorrect, then we have to buy each other lunch.
Dang, that just sounds like such a bad thing to do. But yeah, no,
So
I get it. I get it. Yeah, no, I know.
we're
I'm with
basically
you.
just trading lunch.
As long as we don't just do this entire thing for a $1 bet,
But I think
then
that's we're
that'd
kind of
be
already
fantastic.
we're kind of already on the topic. Hey everybody, thank you so much. We're seeing
Oh,
a great crew in here joining the conversation. We're
we
obviously starting off with Qualcomm, and
well, it's
I
like the big
think
thing going on. Yeah, no,
well,
I mean,
but I think Elite is probably the best place to start, and then we'll backtrack. We'll cover Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 because I'm a little concerned about 8 Gen 3. But
yeah,
we've got these new Orion cores
Orion
and the
cores
Elite.
exactly.
What is it?
We
The
they
X Elite or Elite X? What is it?
if I'm not correct, if I'm not, I think if the Snapdragon X, no, Elite X. I want to
Snapdragon
say
Elite X chip,
X chips.
X
Yeah, yeah,
Elite.
yeah, because it was
I
always
have
referred to as
two
a Snapdragon
headlines
Elite.
back to back here that contradict each other.
What
I've
does it
got an
say?
Axios that says the Snapdragon Elite X chip looks to break whatever, and then PC Mag says meet Snapdragon X Elite. So I'm gonna go with Ars Technica, and Ars Technica says X Elite. We'll say they're correct.
Okay, I'm either
That's
way.
hilarious.
So what we're seeing, okay, so we kind of saw some early leaks and some teasers, literally like days before. It wasn't like we're not talking about like weeks or days before, but the reality is, last year at the end of Summit, Qualcomm announced and teased the Orion. Orion being their next, I guess, architecture, mobile processing venture that was going to revolutionize what they've been doing with the HCX. And of course, it was just around the time when they launched the HCX3, which actually at that summit, I had my my Microsoft, my Surface Pro 9 5G at the time, which was also
Yeah,
kind of cute. They talked
8CX.
about it. No, it was a
Hmm.
solid device, and I truly still miss it. Um, and so far with everything that they've talked about, with everything that they're showing, and I'm always a little bit skeptical on charts and bar graphs because it's a perspective, right? It's something that is seen on from one person's point of view, right? Tested in lab compared to XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
But they're making some bold claims. I mean, they're going straight head on with the M2. They're not even trying to say they're better than the M1. They're talking about better performance, better power efficiency than M2. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I couldn't remember specifically what they were using to compare when it talks about rendering, because that was, to me,
Yeah.
was the big thing, because they talked exactly that what impacts us. It's the render factor. I only switched over to the M1 not because it was that my Acer laptop wasn't working. It just that I couldn't edit videos on a plane. The battery
Sure.
life is horrible, and performance was just not there. Like, I mean, it would literally take. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was just an incompatibility, and Premiere wasn't working as well. DaVinci, as you got me converted over, that definitely worked much better. So a lot of
Yeah.
bold claims. What was your impression when you heard? I mean, obviously with the Orion cores, the configuration, the bold claims of performance, is that something that makes you excited for the movement of going for,
Well,
you know?
so I'm always anxious about vaguely labeled bar graphs,
But those are the
but
best kind, man. Come on,
I know this is
dude.
rampant speculation.
Launch events have been built around vaguely, titled
I
bar graphs.
like that they're making a claim, and they are coming out pretty bold.
They are naming
I
names. That is
don't
true.
really think I don't really think Qualcomm's big target here is Apple. I think they're leveraging Apple's investment in the M series to validate why now is a good time to push into this new agreement. We're fresh out of that lawsuit with ARM and Qualcomm, where they
Mhm.
were in court, sort of debating the license of the company that originally started developing these Orion cores and whether or
I
not
remember
that
that.
extended to Qualcomm. All of this was really messy.
That was
I
last year.
think
It
it's
was exactly, yeah.
telling. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, this is fresh. This is fresh legal ink that we're still digging through. Um, I feel that they clearly have Intel in their sights. And I feel they're trying not to wage too drastic, too scorched earth of a war against Apple,
Mhm.
because they want to be seen on that side of the fence. They want to be seen on the performance per watt,
Yeah.
the scalability, their
Mhm.
their ability to make a great modem and radio so that they're always connected devices. I think they're trying to make that play. It's us against them, and Apple actually becomes kind of an ally in this conversation where so many people have been concerned about Windows on ARM and making this transition. And oh no, what if my random legacy applications from Windows 98 don't work anymore? Oh gosh. And I think now's the right time to
Yeah.
make it. I'm specifically picking and cherry picking some of that from their main benchmark graphs.
Mhm.
They took some shots at the M2 saying, hey, we can make a faster chip, we can go head to head with Apple, but almost all of their performance metrics and comparisons are really against Intel, where they're showing
Well,
performance against
they
Intel 12th
shined
gen.
much better. Yeah, but
Well, but
it's
that's
because
it makes
they're.
for a more dramatic
Oh,
comparison.
no, no,
Like
no.
if we're saying,
Absolutely,
hey,
but I feel
we
like.
got 5% better performance than an M2 at 2 watt better power, it doesn't look as interesting. But when they're showing off something like 60 to 70% power reduction at the same performance as a 13th gen Core i7, that's where I think this conversation gets really interesting. So I
Absolutely.
feel
Yeah, yeah.
like I feel like this is the better play from Qualcomm. I
Okay.
know Qualcomm's relationship with Apple's been super dicey. Qualcomm's been trying to make inroads in the laptop market for a while. They've had some token successes with like Lenovo and
Yeah,
Microsoft. We have the Robo Ancala. I still love my Robo Ancala tablet.
absolutely.
It's a
Yeah,
great
yeah.
little tablet. But this is the fight that I think they want to pick. If they can go after Intel and show you comparable performance, but so in their graph, if you look at sort of peak performance for an
Do you want to share?
i7, a
Do you want to
13th
share
gen,
the?
let me try. This might bork everything because I'm trying a slightly different setup here. So let
Well,
me screen
if you
share
want
in
to,
for
well, I
just a
was gonna
second. Hold
say,
on, we're
if
gonna
you
we're gonna give it a try. We're gonna
let's
we're
try.
gonna do.
If it borks,
We're gonna
send
see,
it to me in private chat, and I can paste it over.
and then we'll go back. So let me do this and share.
If
And
this
oh,
show
it did
goes
kind
your
of work.
way, oh, okay, good. I was
But
gonna say if this
but give
show
me
goes
one
down,
second. I'm
it's all
gonna
Juan's
I'm
fault.
gonna zoom this in. So this is from our buddies at Anantech who are publishing some of the slides, and when they're showing this right here, it's
Yeah.
a 13th gen Core i7 where if we follow this down at the performance, the sort of the peak performance of an i7, they're saying that the CPU is going to be drawing like 90 watts.
Yeah.
And if the Elite X matches that same multi-threaded performance, it's going to be doing the same thing at just over 30 watts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to look way more dramatic, way more interesting than if you had an Apple M2 up there. Because the Apple M2 would probably be a similar curve, power performance curve, as what they're hoping to show off with Elite X.
Absolutely. It's like a Lamborghini and a Ferrari trying to say, hey, we're faster than each other. But look, we're definitely faster. We're definitely faster than that Maxima that's been slagging.
Oh,
Right
yeah,
behind
we
us
did
in
0 to
person.
60 0.1 seconds faster. Oh, yeah, well, we hit the skid pad at like 0.3 Gs. Actually, a
Yeah.
0.3 G improvement to the skid pad would be kind of a big deal.
Ah,
I want to point this out, Michael Corcoran. It's hard not to be a little skeptical given how many times Microsoft has basically abandoned some kind of Windows on ARM project like the Neo and the Surface Pro X.
yeah.
And that's not inaccurate, except that this is, Apple has shown us, this is the future of consumer grade mobile computing. I've been saying it for years. You
Yeah.
have a laptop grade SoC in your pocket right now if you have anything Snapdragon 845 or more powerful. You can
Yep.
draw direct correlations to compute power between your phone and a Core i3 or a Core i5 of maybe a couple generations back. So every single massive failure from the original, like, there was a custom Windows CE build, then we
I
went to
remember that one.
X-Scale
Yeah.
processors,
Hmm.
then we can talk about Windows 8 and Windows RT, but every single one of those has been a better realization of what Windows can be on another platform.
Hmm.
And I'm telling you, with the exception of some heavy GPU compute load stuff, there is very little that holds me back on the 8CX Gen 3 on that Robo Ancala, and that's like a last gen Core i3. Is that the
Absolutely.
most exciting processor to have in there? Absolutely not. But it's like I've got to get really obscure, like software for devices that have been long out of date, that I've got to find like ancient, Windows drivers to try and support. That's the kind of stuff that I'm not able to use on my Robo Ancala. So I don't think that's the hook. If we can improve the compute power
Yeah. Yeah.
at the same power draw, then I think we've got all of the tools in place. There's going to be a transition, but we gave Apple pretty much an entire year to figure out, like, how do you hook up an external monitor? Why does it freak out when I plug in a laptop hub? All of this other software that needs to be kind of transferred and translated and moved over. And like, yeah, that's fine. We gave Apple that runway. I think this is the right time for Windows machines, and then hopefully also we see some more progress on Linux using this hardware too.
Well, by default, I mean, if it's going to be running, if it has better support for Windows, the way we had it on the Robo and Kala, we had the same situation going on with, we benefited from being able to do boot that into Linux. So it's not like you lost any comparisons or comparables in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I would probably say is okay, so I agree with you on the path because you're right. It's like trying to say, we have a faster processor for Android, but then let's just compare it to the other thing that never will run Android that runs its own processor and it is
Sure.
comparable. You're right. We are at the point where it is time for us to start leveraging the mobile processors, the power efficiency that we get with an ARM-based processor. Apple has proven it. We've seen it, and I think it behooves Qualcomm, to be allied in this conversation, and be I'm not going to say the dark side, but the Windows side. It's like, sorry,
Well,
because
but this is why I keep bringing up that Robo Ancala is
yeah.
it is the most feature complete machine
Hmm.
outside of intense video editing. That's the
Well, no,
weakness, is when you hit that GPU hard, but you can install Android apps and it's running Android 13. You
mhm,
can install Linux apps and all you have to do is sudo apt-get update and you're running a current build of Ubuntu. Like,
mhm.
there is very little that holds that machine back. And when you start playing with how different programs have been optimized for different platforms, and how there are a bunch of Linux apps out there that are already pretty well built with ARM chipsets in mind, that's incredible performance. Like, So it's little things like I was just messing around with GIMP. It turns out GIMP actually does have native support for Windows on ARM.
Oh, well,
it's already built in. You download the same installer,
no,
and
we
one of the
installed it.
installer,
It
one of
ran,
the
but
no, no,
I
no, no.
remember you said it ran better on Linux, though. No?
It still does.
Okay.
But as you look at whether or not you have to worry about did you get the right MSI or EXE to install GIMP for this chipset SoC? No. You go to GIMP, is it GIMP.org or whatever it is, and you download the Windows installer, and built into the Windows installer is native support for Windows on ARM.
Okay, nice.
Now, if you want to install Ubuntu on your system, the Linux version is even faster. But it's like that kind of progress. If we don't have the options out there and we don't see the support for it, I mean, GIMP is a very singular example of that. But this is the kind of progress that I would expect to see with DaVinci Resolve getting on board. As soon as you start hammering away at some of those options, this gets a lot. This snowballs. This gets a lot faster.
But it also not only that, but it also is a slightly small fire lit under Adobe's butt right now, because the moment because they've been sitting on their on their own little tower of we're working on it, we're working on it. It's been like 3 years. We're listening to it. No, they've been saying that we're working on it since 2019. Okay, let's be realistic.
Yeah, it's been a grip.
It's been a while, and every time we've talked to them, we're working on it. It's just that they never felt like it was a good investment. I feel like so this is what I'm trying to say essentially is that this is it's a pivoting point on the Windows side, on Windows on ARM specifically, and at least in the realm of the development investment, and also getting companies to start backing this. Qualcomm can make the claims, but the companies need to make these claims come true for us. It's the same thing with the Gen 3. I'm excited for a processor that's faster, better, less power, all of that good stuff. Get me a phone that has that processor and let me use it. Let me see the benefit, and let's see if we're talking a Gen 1 or are we talking a Gen 2 type of an experience, because they're very different.
This is also the opportunity, because I've caught a few comments, and again, no one in our chat, because the people in our chat are far too clever to make this kind of dumb statement about mobile SoCs. But I was scanning through Lemmy, that Reddit clone, and on one of the articles that someone had posted on one of the federated Reddit style conversation threads, it was like someone's like, "Oh, great! Now my laptop is going to thermal throttle just like my phone does," and you're like,
"Oh crap! You have no concept of how laptops work then."
So you don't know how fans work,
no,
apparently.
Yeah.
So
speaking of fans, I got something exciting. I'll mention. Remind me later to tell you something about what things with fan that I got that's very exciting. But anyways, sorry. Yeah, no. The conceptually, cooling on a laptop is definitely much greater.
But this is the opportunity. Like, if you're telling me peak performance is happening somewhere around 30 watts, you could design a throttled laptop that's not actively cooled, right? You could do that, or you could also make that like the difference like Apple does, where there's an air gap, and that's really the only thing that prevents heat from coming out the chassis. So the least expensive MacBooks perform poorer, and then when you get to the MacBook Pro, really all they've done is add active cooling, right?
Exactly.
You could do the exact same thing.
Rarely ever kicks up. That's the one thing I will say.
You're such a shill.
Dude,
you're like, man, I'm better than everyone else because I have a MacBook on TK.
Okay, let me explain. I use a Mac for my day job. Okay, so my computer for the day job is a Mac. It's an i9 Mac, and that computer.
I know that animal. That was brutal.
Dude, it keeps wanting to take off every day, and I'm just
it's a jet engine.
Sitting there and doing nothing, and suddenly the fans kick up, and you can hear it from the other room, and it is just horrible. The M1, swear to God, it's one of those things I almost never hear.
Oh no, I totally know.
And it is. What I'm trying to say is, to credit to the story that you're explaining there, is it is truly active cooling. Is when you add the active cooling to the more obviously intensive level workloads that you're going to be doing, as opposed to doing it on an Air, you're doing it on a Pro. There's a level of difference there. And
Big
I think
time.
with Windows and what we see, I'm excited to see the different flavors that we're going to see with this, because Macs are typically, there's like the Air, there's the Pro, right? There's not really a lot of fluctuation into different OEMs making different versions of this PC. When it goes on Windows, it's similar to what we have it on Android. We have a lot more competition. We have a lot more hands in the cookie jar. And I think that's the big thing for me that I'm really excited to see. How do we get productivity, touted, and not only that, demonstrated the power efficiencies, the benefit that you're able to get, especially with the ultra thin laptops, because you're going to definitely get some Air lookalikes.
Yeah.
But as you said, comparing it to Intel and probably Ryzen at some point, I'm pretty sure they're going to start knocking on the door. It
Yeah.
is going to be it's a big shift in the future. Obviously, we want to see what Intel and Ryzen start going towards, and I feel like
Well,
it's a
and
good.
there are
Mhm.
rumors that AMD is seriously investigating the roadmap for also coming up with some kind of custom core configuration ARM style
I wouldn't be surprised. I think it
solution.
behooves them to start looking into that for
I
sure.
really feel like, my ire with Intel was there was the old company Xscale that
Okay.
were making those amazing Windows Mobile CPUs way back in the day.
Hmm.
So we're talking like iPacs
Hmm.
and Palm Treo era of computing, but Intel bought out Xscale and they're like, "Oh, we just don't see a market for these mobile devices."
Ah.
And then smartphones became a thing, and you're like, you threw away
You threw
what
away
would
that
have been
one.
like a 5-year lead in this type of chip fabrication. And again, it's like I see all of these corporations making these quarterly to quarterly decisions,
Hmm.
kind of like Microsoft cutting the Surface team. You're making a decision based on the financials of a half year of down sales, but you're cutting off the division from growing when PC sales start to climb again. So you won't be building and innovating and developing the solutions that people will want to buy in a couple years. So it's to me it's just killing me. But we should probably use that to transition.
Yeah.
We do know that this is going to be built on the 4 nanometer process, just
Yes.
like the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3.
Yep.
And TK, what are your feelings so far on the announcement that we've seen from this new phone chip?
Dude, honestly, okay. So this is the announcement of the chip is exciting. The announcement, the architecture that we're seeing, the performance gain, the better performance with power saving is always the claims that we see, but it always ends up
Hmm.
again being one of those things you have to kind of get in your hand and to prove it. Um, but the biggest thing I think for me with the Gen 3 announcement was it's almost like the rally of OEMs there. There was a presence
Yeah.
of three of our OEMs that we've worked with in the past and we've worked with. We had Oppo at Summit. We had Xiaomi on stage at the Summit. We had Honor
Hmm.
on stage at the Summit. I was like, seriously, like
Yeah.
who is missing? Like,
It was like a whole
sorry,
parade.
like it was a parade of OEMs. I kind of knew about a couple, and I found out later, like almost like before the event started with the Oppo. Oppo didn't go on stage, but Xiaomi, I feel like Xiaomi just achieved a record for some reason. I think Guinness needs to show up and say, Xiaomi, you
Yeah.
win this record. From announcement to launch of a brand new, from an announcement of a new SoC, the Gen 3, to the launch of the Gen 3 in 48 hours. Like they didn't even finish 48 hours, and the
Nope.
phone's like launched now. We have the
Hello.
14 and the 14 Pro at the end of 2023, the same year that the 13 and the 13 Pro and the 13T and all the 13 Ultra came out. So like to me, it's
Yeah,
like,
they are I think like Xiaomi especially smells blood in the water in a number of their markets against Samsung.
oh yeah,
And it's for them it's
sorry.
always been the race, and they don't hold back. So they put out so many phones
Oh no,
that it really is
absolutely, yeah,
just
yeah.
just clock secondhand tick after secondhand tick that, well, what's the newest, most latest, most up-to-date phone? It's a 13T. Okay, cool, now I know what to buy. And this is perfectly in keeping with beating a major competitor to the punch. I am very anxious to see what Samsung's strategy is going to be as we start seeing
I'm
their phone
well,
announcements, because I
I'm
think they're locked
imagining.
into a more rigid schedule.
Oh no, no, absolutely, absolutely. And but I think it's what's going to happen. It behooves us to kind of just also kind of keep in mind is that the S23 FE just got announced or just launched,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, it's we've seen people talk about it in rumors and so on, but the S23 FE is available for sale now. So Samsung is really slow playing the launch of devices and so on. So I think if anything, it behooves them to keep it running at the same schedule that they do. They don't benefit from running it earlier. Launching an S23 Ultra, an S24 Ultra, or sorry, Ultra and the standard series in the middle
Mm-hmm.
of Christmas is a tough sell
Yeah.
because even though it is technically the buying season, it is not the time where people will venture into new tech to buy. They will buy things that are proven
Yeah.
that no people would like. So I think we may see an S24 launch maybe January. I feel like maybe we will skip a little earlier. I don't think it's going to jump into 2023. I think Xiaomi, and I think I saw somewhat of a roadmap. Xiaomi, Vivo, Oppo,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I want to say, but not necessarily their high end. Like I think with Vivo is the Y100 or 1000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't. Although that's not the. I mean, that's not the X series, right? The Y series is a
No.
different. Yeah, yeah. Because I didn't
Completely
see
different
the
series.
X
Yeah.
series. I assumed the X 1000. Like no, the X100.
X100.
Yeah, the X
Yeah.
100. Sorry. Um,
Well, and see, that's also what's kind of curious is Vivo did a lot of work this last year
with
in making
me.
their phones just a little bit more modular.
Hmm.
So when we talk about like the components that really make up um, an interesting Vivo photography solution, like their co-processor was bolt-on, and they
Hmm.
they were really proud of themselves that they had made it cross-platform, so they could have a MediaTek chip,
Yeah.
or it could have a Qualcomm chip, and they said we have minimized the differences in how photos come out, even based on how MediaTek uses a different ISP than Qualcomm does. But in getting down to some of the nerdiness,
The
like if we're
nerdiness, the
really digging into like
no, no,
core
for sure.
configurations and stuff like that, I do think that this is another interesting step for for Qualcomm. But to me, I'm kind of feeling like they might be playing a little defense this generation.
And I
We
think they
know they're
could.
not using the
Hmm.
newest 3 nanometer
Hmm.
process from TSMC.
No,
They're
I
still at
think
4 nanometers.
I feel like the 3 nanometer is not going to be till because we saw MediaTek also kind of make an announcement saying they're shifting to the 3 nanometer in
Yeah.
2024. So I feel like, yeah, HN4 and whatever the next iteration on the MediaTek on the Dimensity side, I think like what,
Hmm.
9400. If they continue with the naming structure, so yeah,
Yeah.
no, no, definitely they stuck to the same. You're right,
But
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 mhm, always.
in sticking with 4 nanometers, and
Mhm.
I'm looking mostly at CPU because I feel like everybody this year, I mean into 2024, I feel like everybody's big claim is AI. So we're
Oh,
going to
I
put
was about
a
to say, yeah,
phenomenal amount of energy and
exactly.
effort into making these MPUs and these machine learning components and stuff like that.
On
But
device
when
AI. Yeah.
sure, and it's going to do generative. It's so much work and so much extra silicon to do like, look, I made this photo look funky, and you're like, cool, man, that's a lot of processing power that phone needed to do that, but awesome. I know that's definitely going to be the thing we're always doing forever. It's absolutely not a fad right now.
Well,
Sure.
no, Qualcomm
Um,
did make a demonstrations at MWC in terms of AI
I
on
know.
the chip too.
But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is how much effort and how much energy it takes to do this stuff on device generative AI. I have to question the usage of resources. But
Okay.
what I'm trying to get to is the CPU is a very unconventional arrangement
Oh, the arrangement is
where
very
we've
perfect.
got
Yeah.
one big huge prime core, a
Hmm.
Cortex X4, but then we've got 5 performance cores and two
Ooh,
power
low
efficiency
efficient.
cores.
A very different shift
And
in what we saw last year. You're right.
so to me, this is the acknowledgement from Qualcomm that this generation of fabrication
Hmm.
can be pushed a little bit more aggressively, and that these medium cores, the 5 medium performance cores, not the really big X core, they have improved in their performance per watt enough that you don't need to have as many of these fallback low power just get basic tasks done kind of hardware.
Background, low power, screen off type of functionalities.
Well, and there are so many other little co-processors and co-pieces built into the SoC now that manage radio performance and manage your display. And the display is kind of figuring stuff out from the camera hardware. I mean, so all of this stuff is kind of globally diversified. All of the pieces of your phone. It's why we got so excited for Xiaomi and Vivo camera co-processors, is because that was also used to reduce power draw from your screen. You know, so those little things, like if you can offload work from the GPU but run it through your camera hardware, you can save, you know, a little bit of power in doing that. But this is totally rumor. We don't know what it's going to look like. But if MediaTek really is moving forward with the rumored configuration on the next Dimensity, and that is a 3-nanometer part in the traditional CPU GPU workloads, that's where I feel Qualcomm might slide next year, kind of in maybe the way that they did with the 8 Gen 1. It's going to be a really interesting fight if those Dimensity rumors turn out to be true.
So we're not too far from Dimensity's announcement either way. I mean, it usually is right around Thanksgiving, and I think that's roughly where I think MediaTek's staying this year. My main concern and where we are with the so the configuration is one part of the equation, right? It's the implementation, it's the software support, it's the adoption also by companies and OEMs. In 2023, we saw a much bigger adoption of MediaTek Dimensity chipsets. We saw a much bigger presence in Dimensity chipsets in the mid-range area, even up to the 8000 series. I feel like MediaTek has basically just flourished into that. And it's purely, I'll be honest, purely because of the lack of presence from Qualcomm. Qualcomm hasn't really done much in the mid-range area. I mean, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but, you know, Moto is releasing its 7 Gen 1. Although it sounds like it's been a long time for the 7 Gen 1, this was announced last year. This was actually no, 2 years ago. Sorry, my mistake. It was announced 2 years ago, but it was starting to make available last year. So there's a big push into that configuration. I think MediaTek is growing, and I think Qualcomm may be concerned about that market share. I think that's why they're trying to play a little bit more defensive. They don't want to push the envelope too much and get an 888 and 8 Gen 1 again and lose market share where the other players are becoming stronger and stronger. It's better to play more of a conservative position. You know, your 8 Gen 2 is doing really well. It has been accepted and performed and proven that it does very nice. You need to you basically, for the lack of a better term, efficientize this processor as much as you can. Make it so efficient that it's hard to reach, as opposed to try to keep pushing the speed limit, because it's not always. Again, we are so beyond speed at this point.
Sure,
we are beyond.
That's my prediction for. Not my prediction. I shouldn't say I'm predicting anything. That's my most interesting thing to watch as we get closer to MediaTek's event.
Yep. Oh, yeah, because Qualcomm leapfrogged MediaTek, right? It used to be MediaTek, and it would be MediaTek, Qualcomm right after each other, and now it's like, well, so Qualcomm went out. We have the announcement.
A little like Apple trying to suck some air out of the sails there, just a bit. Like, oh, we don't know what they're gonna announce, but here's all our cool stuff. Check it out. But the rumor is that. And this is like, this doesn't exist until we see it in a product. So we need to take this with like a boulder of salt. But that with the 3-nanometer process, which is a 25% reduction over what the generation of fab that Qualcomm's going to be at, is that
the multiplier
MediaTek is going to be doing
from these smaller numbers is much greater. We have to always appreciate when you're talking about reduction in die. We're talking about a massive reduction in size, efficiency. It gets so much,
huge. So anyway, so the rumor is that MediaTek is going to be going with an 8-core processor with 4 X cores and 4 medium power cores and none of the 500 series efficiency cores.
Skip those little inefficient monkeys.
So if there's a 25% reduction in gate size for those 700 series cores, the medium cores, that could make up some of those power disparities between 4 nanometers and 3 nanometers, where you wouldn't need the low power efficiency cores. If that turns out to be true,
If the
and
if the
MediaTek
medium
can kind of
efficiency,
hang
yeah.
with a performance per watt, I mean, even just like a max wattage under 10 watts on a
Hmm.
phone, because that's really where we started getting in trouble with the 8 Gen 1. Is the
Yeah.
8 Gen 1 would like spike, and if you were really using the CPU and GPU, your phone was like nearing in on 10 watts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where phones get real toasty.
You get
That's
cooking
like
and nuking the battery in at the same
that's like
time.
low grade laptop moderate use,
Well, I
like
mean, they made some claims. I mean, Qualcomm's made some claims. Actually, was it Qualcomm or sorry, or Xiaomi, where they made claims on Genshin Impact level gaming at 42 to 43 Celsius maximum temperature.
yeah,
Like, which, I mean, it's not like cool and everything, but it's like 107 or 108. Still cooler than what we've seen in the past with what used to be like, close
a
to like
lot.
30. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a big race between the two, but it's still going to have to come down to about companies and adoption and um, people using these type of SoCs. Like Vivo last year, globally
Hmm.
only launched a MediaTek version of their device, the X90 Pro, where the Qualcomm stayed in China.
Yeah.
I want to say OnePlus used the Dimensity, was it the 8200 on their Nord? I could be wrong about the SoC, but the Nord 3 also
Sure.
ran on a MediaTek. Like I said, the jury's out on the flagship processors, because so few
Hmm.
are present and way more Qualcomms are present on the market than we see on MediaTek. But where the headway is being done in the mid rangers, that's what's going to open up the gate for MediaTek. So the exciting part for me would be to see them jump into the 3 nanometer and show us the efficiency performance that they're able to do, where even their medium cores are more efficient and less power drawing than the
Yeah.
efficiency cores of a 4 nanometer SoC. Like, that's the level of leapfrogging that we want to be able to see
So here,
and benefit from that. But yeah.
I was gonna say, here in the United States, we probably won't see as much of that competition really play out,
Right.
because we also have to factor in radios. JGJ nails it. Only reasons MediaTek isn't prominent in the U.S. software update support and cellular modem U.S. compatibility. So once you start factoring all the carriers and stuff, like Xiaomi, I think was a great example. The Xiaomi 13 had better support for North American carriers and 5G services than the 13T did for
Hmm.
North Americans. We lost out on a couple bands that would have helped. So that's probably going to be one area where, sure, we might not see a Dimensity 9300 in any practical form in a premium tier smartphone, but I think this is going to be yet another step for things like tablets, where the
True.
OnePlus
Oh, that's true.
running a
That's true.
Dimensity 9000 in a
Hmm.
tablet meant that we could almost bridge an entire generation of performance. There were tasks on that OnePlus tablet
Hmm.
that matched Dimensity 9200s, because you had a bigger battery, you had more surface area to expel heat.
To
You
expel heat.
got a
You
you
weren't
got almost
throttling
a
the processor.
generational upgrade. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we start looking at like some of these other players like Lenovo, they've been doing really interesting things with those Companion
Hmm.
processors. And even if it's not called the Dimensity 9300, a very similar configuration of that hardware ends up making it into the Companion line, and
Yep.
suddenly we've got a Lenovo tablet that's
Powered by
nearing
MediaTek
in
and
on last
performs.
generation Core i5 performance. So that to me is where this race gets interesting for North America. Unfortunately, like, we probably won't get the direct head-to-head phone performance, but in Europe, this could be a really brutal fight.
And
And I don't think Samsung and Exynos are going to be chipping away at exactly that same kind of performance. I think Samsung's
Especially if
still
the
probably
rumors
going to
are,
be,
yeah, if the rumors are true that that we are going to get the Qualcomm flavor of the game, US and Korea, and they're going
yeah,
back to the Exynos approach, which, man, I mean, like they jump on a year and they're like, so did you not see the benefit? like like, did you not
yeah,
see that
but
people were
but
happy?
consi- considering that Samsung is like the bedrock of the entire South Korean economy, they can't not make chips in their chip fab. So you gotta,
I'm with you. No, I
but
don't get
I
me wrong.
think,
I'm with you on that. Yeah,
but there was a time where Exynos chips used to be
better.
decent cost cost-efficient options for
Better
other brands. There were
performance.
other companies that were using Exynos, and they
Oh,
were getting those chips from Samsung. We've
oh, yeah.
seen like mid-rangers and entry-level phones from other brands
Okay.
use Exynos chips in the past, but I think MediaTek has eaten their lunch on that right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially with the more recent
They have the
like
production
mid-ranger
line,
gear
they have
is
the
really
resources,
good.
they have the relationships, they have everything. I mean, MediaTek as a company, we're talking about them as a manufacturing, a processor, SoC manufacturer.
Hmm.
But the reality, that's such a small part of what they do. It is realistically a much bigger ecosystem of integrations and relationships that MediaTek
Well, I
definitely
mean,
can.
it is and it isn't. I mean, so Samsung is a little conglomerate of all of
Hmm.
these other manufacturing
No,
entities, but
same.
Samsung Silicon, they're going to be putting what, something like $2 to $4 billion a year. No, I have that wrong. Am I off by a factor of 10? Samsung in, is it they were going to put 200 billion in over 10 years? I
For
mean, we're talking
improving
like
their
chip
their
fab is
machine,
going
the
to
chip.
be really expensive. Samsung 200 bill. Let me just do that. Billion South Korea. I might have that wrong. Yes, $230 billion over the next 10 years.
Okay.
So the semiconductor industry, the chip fab, this is
Well, I mean, chips are in
this is
everything though now. Everything you're buying, your cars have more chips
pretty
than
brutal.
before. The 90% of the reason why we ran into a chip shortage was because there was so many things that needed them. I mean, the reality is, yeah, more things in our cars are chip reliant, and if a chip fails, it's a part change and
Sure.
it's a hardware. So it's for sure. I'm not arguing that conversation. What I was primarily mentioning with MediaTek is, like, they've worked with TCL, they've worked with TV manufacturers, they've worked with
Hmm.
Amazon. They're in conversations with many companies. Samsung obviously still dominates the display market. A lot of companies still use Samsung panels. It's not a question about who makes what part. It's more about why is it that MediaTek is able to do better in the mid-range or in the budget side. Is because they've been doing it for so long. They've made devices with the Helio chipsets. They've made it before,
Yeah.
before even having the Dimensity. My concern, I guess, would be at this point is Qualcomm is out the gate. So Qualcomm made the announcement. They posted their flyer, and they're saying, "Look, this is what we're going to do." Xiaomi jumped on, and Xiaomi obviously is signing on. But we also know that Xiaomi will work with MediaTek. We also know Vivo works with MediaTek. All the other companies that have worked with Qualcomm will
Hmm.
feature a version of their devices with a MediaTek chipset. May not be their flagship, may not be the best of the best that they're offering, but I'm hoping that conversation changes. I'm hoping that does change as we see more performance improvements with the 9300. Hopefully, I'm assuming the
Hmm.
9300 is the next, or the 9400, which is when MediaTek and it would announce that they're jumping into 3 nanometer. So it's slowly changing. The tide is changing, but it's a slow change. We saw more this year. I want to see even more next year, and I think that's the biggest excitement. I'm hoping when we do get a chance to go meet with MediaTek and talk to them. I don't know if you guys know, but Juan and I last year had a really good opportunity to be able to go up and talk to MediaTek during their summit. We learned a lot
Yeah.
about their technologies. So if we have the opportunity to do it again this year, I would love to be able to see how their roadmap is going, and are they going to start venturing into wearables? I want to see them in more non-traditional, compute pieces of hardware. Not saying this is
Yeah.
MediaTek. I want to see them in wearables. I want to see them in watches. I want to see them in glasses. I want to see them, leveraging some of their
So yeah,
experience.
that seems to be their weak spot right now. Is Qualcomm has been making incredible progress with things like audio products,
W7, man, that
and
that that is crazy stuff right there.
it's
Yeah,
it's kind of
it's like,
intense, and especially once you're starting to look at this like Qualcomm Snapdragon seamless experience. MediaTek's efforts haven't been like, I mean, they're making efforts and they're making inroads, but those are the kinds of products where I feel MediaTek doesn't have the same kind of relationship with vendors, with
Mhm,
manufacturers, or with customers.
mhm.
So if you care about premium audio in your wireless earbuds, you're familiarizing yourself with letters like LDAC and aptX.
Yep.
And you might not know that MediaTek has made some solutions and some really interesting, like those JBLs are great.
Yes,
I
I remember
love
those.
those
Yep.
JBLs with my Steam Deck. But it's not the same kind of relationship with the brand that you would have with Snapdragon. So knowing that they've got their war chest built on entry level and mid-ranger phones where they're outselling Qualcomm,
Yep.
and that they're in so many other products like TVs,
Mm-hmm.
that's where this fight sort of spreads and gets interesting. MediaTek's radios and modems are really good. I think Qualcomm's are still probably pulling ahead in a lot of markets. But you start looking at like TV broadcast and entertainment equipment, and that's MediaTek
Through
all
and
over
through.
the place.
Yep. Exactly.
So it's like they're finding creative ways to sort of step on each other's turf. It's like fun little ways they can say like, but you've got a
Oopsie.
little gap in your market right there, and I'll take it.
Yeah. No. Hey. The whole mid-ranger experience in blew me of the Dimensity chipset and the 1000, the 1200, and 1300,
Yeah,
and all the way,
1200.
8000 is absolutely a gap that happened where Qualcomm wasn't focusing on mid-range. They focus a lot on
Hmm.
their higher end, and even their 7 Plus Gen 2 performs more like a flagship processor than it even performs as a
Yeah,
mid-ranger. So no, I totally am with you, and I think there is again, yeah, you snooze, you lose in this game because people are literally gunning for each other's, as you were nicely saying, like a nice little opening there where it's like, hey, there's an opportunity, bam, somebody took it. It's like an open table, reservations will take. We'll have to
for
see how that
sure.
goes. So obviously we talked a lot about the G3, the 87, sorry, the 8, the sorry, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3.
Snapdragon 8 Gen 3.
The Elite X architecture, the W7, wireless audio solutions as
Hmm.
well. On-device AI is going to be the biggest thing, kind of showcasing, and I think I saw some of our friends that are starting to showcase the demos that they're showing there. I always love, and my final thought on this entire thing is this: Qualcomm is showcasing the plethora of functions and things that they're able to do with their series for 2024. This is their roadmap for
Hmm.
2024. But the reality at
Sure.
the end of the day, when you're looking at this entire roadmap, is this is not really our roadmap. This is the roadmap for OEMs. This is the roadmap for
Yeah.
manufacturers. They get to go in and say, hey, I would like to have this, not that, but this and this. So it's going to come down to that kind of recipe building of what they pick and
Yeah.
choose and how they put it, and how that ends up basically translating to us as a device in our hands. So like the Xiaomi 14, we're talking obviously about a
Hmm.
new Xiaomi's skin running on there. I think it's Hyperion, oh man,
Hyper OS?
Hyper. I want to say
Is
it's
it
Hyper.
Hyper?
Yeah, Hyper OS
Someone's gonna
on
correct us in
Xiaomi.
the comments.
Oh, absolutely, they're going to
Because
destroy us in the comments.
they're walking away from the MIUI branding, and
They're going,
now
yeah.
they're
It's
going with
it's
this AI IoT. That's what I thought was interesting is they weren't just saying AI operating system. It was
it's an
to really
IoT.
tie together all of their other product lines because we forget here in the United States how much stuff Xiaomi
Xiaomi
makes.
makes. Well, I mean, it's a little bit also, if you think about it, it's kind of like how what's it called, Huawei was doing with Harmony, right? Their
Yeah.
Harmony OS wasn't just for a smartphone; it's Harmony OS for all of the stuff. So the approach that we're looking at, obviously, we're going to see more as time goes on, but
Hmm.
it is going to come down to the OEMs and how they make this happen. Honor has made some claims and has made some announcements saying that basically they're trying to leverage the AI functionalities heavily.
Sure.
Xiaomi obviously launched their device. Oppo went the route of, stay tuned. We have some cool stuff coming up. So obviously we'll hear more from them. I didn't hear anything from OnePlus, so I'm not sure if there was any information, but there were
Not
rumors
yet.
obviously that the OnePlus 12
12.
will be
Yeah.
launching in China later this year. So if that's
Hmm.
true, more than likely that'll have the A Gen 3. So long story is, be patient, and we'll have more. We'll be able to talk
You
more
you
once we
you want
start
to
seeing the
hear
hardware.
why I'm also a little anxious if Qualcomm is making this kind of noise on AI?
Uh-oh. Why?
I feel like this is going to be a defense year for Qualcomm. So, according to Qualcomm's own white paper here
Yeah.
on Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, they have so many different AI parameters by how they're trying to grade performance. And I still haven't found, if anyone in the chat has a good real world application that can be timed or measured in some way, I'm very not impressed using synthetic benchmarks to talk about AI compute units. But right now, all
Yeah.
I have that I can run as a consistent test to show some numbers are synthetic benchmarks. So according to Qualcomm, we are looking at up to 98% faster NPU performance and they say and up to a 40% performance per watt improvement. So
Okay.
it's twice as fast, and it's using less power per comparable performance.
More for less. Yep.
So with some of the measurements that we have access to in our synthetic benchmarking apps, in our benchmark tests, something like a Tensor 3 can sometimes outperform an 8 Gen 2 by a factor of 3 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
So if Qualcomm doubles their NPU performance, Tensor 3 still might be slapping it around with these generative AI and these AI tasks, assistant integration, and what we're leaning on for Android. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be facing the most competition they've ever seen from MediaTek. We know MediaTek's going to come out swinging. They're not getting the advantage of a new processor die shrink, a new fabrication technology. And even with some of their claims, because again, we have no idea how this stuff is going to perform until it's actually in a product.
Oh,
but
again,
their
how
own
it's
claims,
how it's managed, how it's running, all of that conversation.
But their own
into
claims here still would lend some credence to the claims being made by Google that the direction Google wants to go, they needed to roll their own chip. And Google isn't trying to win the CPU GPU race. They're definitely not trying to win that for Tensor 3. But Tensor 3 might be doing some stuff with those googly bits on those machine learning parts and pieces that could be really interesting. So when people sit back and say like, oh, well, I tried to do this thing on the Pixel 8 Pro and it took a little while to do the generative AI thing. And you're like, yeah, it's probably the fastest solution capable of doing that right now, and it doesn't look like the competition is going to outpace them next year. Google has been making these neural core and these ISP components. They're pretty brutal at that. They know how to manipulate a lot of data like that. So it's going to be picking and choosing our battles, but right now I'm waiting to see. Qualcomm is good at this. I was expecting Qualcomm to be facing a lot more scrutiny with the 9200 versus the 8 Gen 2. The 8 Gen 2 turned out to be a brilliant chip that I feel saved premium Android this last year.
Absolutely.
But this next year,
unless
we see something where Qualcomm's really getting out there and working with their partners and bringing these experiences to consumers, like a lot of this stuff is a win is going to be found on another competing platform, or it's comparable performance, but they can drop the price. This is what gets really exciting about this, is seeing that competition. The competition is great, but I'm very anxious for Qualcomm's sort of planned solution here. It could be a really tough year for them in 2024.
And the biggest thing I'll probably end up saying also as a last thought kind of on my side as well is all that generative AI that we're talking about. And oh wow. Okay. No, I thought I just chipped my phone. How likely is it that we're going to be running, trying to go take a picture, like you're in IRL, you're there, you're taking the picture, you're taking this amazing, beautiful picture. But the first thing your thought process goes through is like, hey, let me fill it in let me make it better by using it, as opposed to just taking a bigger ultra wide.
See, that point right there is why I was making that point. We're putting so much effort and so much energy and so many resources into making ML hardware, and I still don't see the real consumer killer apps that make someone think, I need the AI phone that's going to do the AI stuff.
And what's going to happen is with both between Xiaomi and Honor, at least from the announcements that they've talked about, only Honor talking about trying to get generative AI built into it. Xiaomi didn't mention it. It's not built into Hyper. I mean, Xiaomi's more efficient, what Xiaomi wants is a more efficient processor that draws less power, because the one thing that surprised me with the Xiaomi 14 Pro is that it ran at a 4880 milliampere battery. It doesn't have a 5000 milliampere battery.
Sure.
So there's slow changes. Anyway, obviously all of this will end up being proven by when devices are launched and available. But it is absolutely exciting to see that this is the roadmap. And I'm just hoping to see that, companies do the same thing they did in 2023, and that they leverage all the investments that they've done and just keep the experience improvement going on. And that's what I want. I just want it to be either consistent or slightly improved, but let's not try to do 888, 8 Gen 1 conversation and have to lose 3 years before we get 2 years before we get to a good solution like the 8 Gen 2 or the 8 Plus Gen 1. But that was kind of like a short lived. I mean, we didn't even have an 8 Plus Gen 2 this year.
Nope.
This is the time typically that we hear about it.
There really wasn't a need to. And I feel like you were mentioning with some of the 7 series.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the reasons why we lost so much ground, Qualcomm, I'm saying we, like I'm Qualcomm. Qualcomm lost ground on the 7 series, and it was a huge opening for MediaTek, was because that was also part of their transition, moving chip fab away from Samsung and back to TSMC. And so when you get to that 7 Plus Gen 2, that is actually a surprisingly expensive chip to make for it being labeled the 7 series.
7 series, yeah, exactly.
Getting back on TSMC's fab. And it's an incredible performer. I still get comments almost daily on my Poco video, just like people are buying that thing, and the performance off that chip is remarkable. It is a fantastic,
absolutely one of the best 7 series that I've ever seen. And again, when you compare it to the 7 Gen 1, they're not even, I mean, they're very, very different.
Very different.
Very, like seriously, like one truly performs like a mid-ranger and the other
one
performs
but
like
flipping those chips, I think, was an additional expense and was a burden for Qualcomm managing that transition, which is why I don't think we're seeing them in as many phones. They're expensive.
I haven't seen the 7 Gen 2 in any other than the F5. I haven't seen it.
Nope.
I've seen more 7 Gen 1 now, especially like I said with the Razr 2023 in 2023 at the end of the year. We're seeing the 7 Gen 1 being used as a mid-range processor because from a power consumption and probably price, as you said, it probably a lot more expensive. Yeah.
Let's switch that over, because obviously you've got a 7 Gen 1 that is not functionally able to run any current software. It's already out of date. There's a 7 Plus Gen 2.
It barely boots, man. It barely boots.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really kind of an embarrassment, and it's a completely impractical and unusable device now. Because we can only think in terms of like half fiscal year. Right?
I think it's more about capabilities for me and more about what you're looking to get out of your device. and I said that in the video that I put out because I wanted people to keep it's almost like set your expectation to the right level of where you're looking and you will not be disappointed.
I'm obviously being
and you're
facetious.
Oh no, absolutely. I am falling into
I actually really liked that the original Moto Razr was on that 765, because the 765 was the right chip.
Well, that's what the 7 Gen 1 is pretty much. It's like the next step behind that.
Yeah. That's what I mean, is it's the right chip for a communicator phone that has a smaller battery. You don't want a turbocharged V8 in a car with a 5-gallon gas tank.
Hey man, I want to be able to empty out my tank in 2.5 seconds.
Right, in 1/4 mile.
In 1/4 mile. Not reach 60 miles in a 1/4 mile. No, come on, man. Let's be honest with each other. We all have different aspirations as to what we want our cars to do. I want mine to die at a 1/4 mile.
But me being silly notwithstanding, I mean, this is the foldable. This is the flippable. You have been talking every single time we have mentioned flip series phones. You're like, yeah, but Motorola is going to be coming out with this more affordable flip, and so now we got to know, like, what do you think?
So I'll say this: make sure to check out the video. Obviously, there's a lot more conversation.
For sure.
The general idea of what this device is, to me, this is the aperitif of foldables, and this is the entryway to try something that is different than what you're used to. We are very much comfortable and very much aware of this form factor. Moto is trying to show us even a form factor that works as a watch where you're able to put it on and bends and a whole bunch of. But the reality of the matter is this device does very much built around that 7 Gen 1. The capabilities that we get there, the camera experience that we get there is very much put around there. But they kept some of the most important pieces that I liked about the big guy. I'll call the Razr Plus as the big boy. So they kept the 144 refresh rate on the internal display. They kept the stereo speakers, which is basically Moto's commitment to their consumers. Is all of their devices they're going to be launching, be it flagship, mid-tier or whatever, they're all going to carry stereo speakers because that was something they heard back from their users. Everybody loves stereo when you're watching content. The device runs very nice. 8 gigs of RAM. I think I learned my lesson with the Razr Plus. 8 gigs of RAM can play a good experience on Moto as long as you're not running a custom launcher. And I feel like this is going to be We're going to have a
Fair.
lot more conversation as time goes on, how custom launchers and what they do on devices. But daily activity, UI, everything, 7 Gen 1 can handle everything that you want. There's no question. 8 gigs of RAM. The lightness of the Moto UI on top of Android 13 is very minimal. And you definitely don't need more than 8 gigs. You're fine. The camera experience, I'll say it's an okay camera experience. Not going to blow anything out of the water. And I think that's what I said that in the video. Is set your expectation to a mid-range device. It's $600, and I know it's not like the 400 where we typically say 400 to 500, but you have to remember this is a hinge.
It's the cheapest phone with a hinge.
It's the cheapest phones you can get on a hinge. And I know Tecno technically announced a version of their device, but we'll never see that here in the US. You know what I mean? Like
it seemed like the distribution on that was also going to be pretty limited too.
Oh, no, absolutely. Tecno and Infinix as companies have very much.
I guess I should say it's the cheapest phone we can get with a hinge.
That's what,
and by we I mean North Americans. That's fair.
Very much. Well, yeah, but keep in mind this was
that would stand up in a court of law. I've been watching Suits, so I know all about courtroom drama.
It is a fun phone to have if you like flip phones. If you want to be able to get your hands on something that has a lot of the features and the functionalities that you want. And what I really was excited about this, dude, this $600, which by the way, originally was supposed to be $699, which was the retail price. In pre-order time, they had it listed at $599 as a pre-order price. But then when it went to retail, it stuck to the $599. It never really went back. Yeah, because guess what? The Razr Plus is $799.
Yeah.
It's the Plus dropped in price, and this one is in there. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it also supports Ready For, which to me is a big win. It's wireless, not wired. And I put that in as a little clip. I was when I was shooting my B-roll, you were doing your SGGQA, I think one Monday. So I posted you straight on my monitor here on my TV, and I showed the clip in there. So you have a little bit of a cameo without knowing that you were in there in the video. Exactly, being on your, on the Monday morning SGGQA more. So the long story I would probably say is it's worth it if you want to get something that's a little bit more on budget and you want to try it out. I feel like the Razr Plus, the Razr 2023 is a good entry. Just don't expect the camera performance of what you would expect, maybe let's say even with the Razr Plus. Although I still feel like Moto needs some improvements on their camera processing. They're able to get high megapixel cameras, and we get 4K 30 all across.
Yeah,
but the processing needs a little bit more love.
It definitely feels like one of the areas where I feel Moto will probably always be a generation out of step, because their cameras aren't bad. They genuinely are not bad.
To Singapore when I was there for Oppo, and it did decent in certain experiences, and as long as it's well.
But you've also got to kind of manage the experience a little bit more, and I feel what makes a more current premium tier phone a more interesting or compelling camera for this sort of broad consumer base that we try to review things under are the ways that a camera can hold your hand, and Motos can be a little stark in that regard, but. I mean, even from my Edge Plus last year, it was not difficult arriving at what I felt were completely competitive shots against like a Galaxy Plus.
Yeah.
But you've got this fun purple phone. It folds in half. You've been using it out and about?
Yeah, like, no, I travel with it too.
Yeah. Has there been any of that experience where someone kind of is checking it out, or someone asks you about it, or like
the clamshell style? I think not as much. It's kind of weird. I got more people asking me about this guy because it looks a little bit more stark.
I've had a few like, hey, what's that?
Like I'm on the plane and I'm like walking around like, what is that? I think overall the biggest stark. I'm not trying to take the limelight away. There's a lot more game in the flip phone in the clamshell style, because there's obviously two different foldables. There's the clamshell and then there's the tablet style, or the bigger version.
Sure.
And I got more looks on the Oppo Find N3 Flip than I did than the Moto.
Okay.
And I think primarily because the design is very familiar. This is a classic Z Flip 2 and 3
style.
No, even Z Flip 4 before we went to the big display.
I
think for the most
part,
they
went bigger,
yeah. So it's a very familiar experience. Where I think where Samsung was more of like the design, the camera stack was slightly sideways. But the long story is, it's not unfamiliar. It's very familiar, And I think that's going to also appeal to why people may decide to pick it up. They may see the form factor, they may like it. It is sturdy. The hinge is definitely very sturdy. I feel like the N3 Flip with that camera stack on the back with the larger, smaller phone display on the outside strikes a little bit more of the, ooh, what is that kind of a thing?
Yeah.
And this one
So
just
you don't
blends
walk
in.
around just be like, hold on, let me answer my telefono.
Hello? Yeah, I don't answer
You
calls.
like with like all of your arms, like
No, you need to do this.
big arm action.
Hello. Hey, wait. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you there, but you know how it is. Uh, no, like it's one of
Fling.
the and they still one of the things I really like about them is they still do. Hold on, let's see. Can we get it to focus? Come on,
Yup.
come on. Oh,
It's not
come
going
on.
to focus, but I know what you're trying to show
Uh,
us because it's
right
that
there. Yeah,
awesome Moto
it's
dialer.
it's the retro razor on obviously on the
Yeah.
razor because come on okay, forget about it. Okay, Sony doesn't want to do it. I'm not
Jeez,
gonna.
Sony.
Yeah.
Just help a bro out.
Help focus on the important stuff, man. It's right there.
So
But
full
yeah, I
full
definitely would recommend
video,
it. Yeah, full
and
videos on it.
I know
Gaming
this one
obviously, as you
was one
expect.
that you were anticipating, you were waiting on for a while. I mean, without completely spoiling your video, I guess like the question I would have is
Yeah,
knowing that there's going to be a bit of a premium on a mid-ranger phone experience by having a hinge, but we're
yeah.
not too far outside the realm.
No,
This isn't like the original Moto Razr where it was like a $1,300 phone for a
it's
mid-ranger
for major
SoC.
SoC exactly. Yeah. I think
I, I, I
this is
feel like
priced at
I
the right
feel like
level.
I
Yeah,
feel like this reinforces those conversations we were having in like the second generation of Z Flips,
yeah,
that this is more familiar. People understand flip phones,
yeah.
especially people our age understand the nostalgia of flip
But
phones.
and I
But
think
then when you
it
open
works
it,
to its benefit. That
yeah,
familiar look that it has, although maybe people think, well, like, how come you didn't go with a big display? It's because that's what people's familiar with. For the last 3
yeah.
years, Samsung's been hammering this to everybody. So now Moto is in the game with it. So it's not going to
Yeah.
look too far off. I'm with you. Yeah.
So, from one phone that kind of hits that flip design, I think we need to follow up. That's kind of the perfect place to sort of segue and transition.
You're going to flip
I've
from
had
one
so
side
many
to the other.
people
Yeah.
reacting to the OnePlus Open.
Dude,
It's
that
another phone that seems that takes people by surprise.
it does.
So
It
you
does.
hold it up and you're just like it's like any other regular phone, but people will say like, "Hey, what's going on with those cameras?" And again, I'm out at the park and I'm talking to one of the moms. We have a little soccer club that meets after school, and
Yeah.
I'm pulling stuff up and I go, "Hold on, let me just do this." And I'm not really thinking about doing that anymore. And she had to stop everything
And we're
to
like, what?
figure out why my phone tablet thing just unfolded itself, and she'd never encountered that face to face,
Yep.
and she spent a good 10 minutes of this like soccer class just doing this like over and
But
over and over
but
again.
there's that satisfying thinness to it. There's also that satisfying. It's kind of a
Yeah.
weird thing. Some people like talk about it, but the fact that it does that little clap, that little book clap,
Mhm.
that is what's it called? Microsoft Duo slamming style for me. Every time I get that snap, I
Right.
remember the Duo. There's a satisfying feel to it. The biggest thing, obviously, that we're trying to lead to, obviously, is it's available now. The Open, no pun intended, is on open sale. Um, the OP, the OnePlus Open is finally available for people to pick up. There is
Mhm.
a slew of accessories that's also coming out later on. But the big thing for us also is that we finally got that massive update that we've been wanting, which is the day one update launch. That,
Yep.
for the lack of a better term, better term, is essentially just turns everything to what it's supposed to be. This is the
Mhm.
version of the phone that OnePlus is selling. What we've had prior to
It is
this
now
has been a software
pre-release.
a
Yeah.
pre-release version of software, and not everything is like, Google Pay wasn't working for an event, for a specific, but it's more
Some
of a
of
just
that application layer for
yeah,
split screening and
split screen
multitasking wasn't
exact
working. Some of the rotation
improvements.
issues. There
Yeah,
definitely were some camera gremlins. I mean, like there was a lot. There was
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot that kind of chipped away at the daily usability, and I really feel even for the people that are still kind of glowing about the hardware, I feel it is always irresponsible
Yep.
to review a OnePlus in that initial embargo push.
And
I don't
most
care
Chinese
that a few
companies,
people like
yeah.
it better now.
Hmm.
You know this every single year. If you get early access to a brand, if it's Samsung, if it's OnePlus, if it's Xiaomi, if it's
Hmm.
another Oppo, you are not getting the experience that consumers will have. And I'm really tired of this response because I've gotten it a lot on Twitter today.
Yeah.
Oh, well, OnePlus should not have sent it out in a state that it wasn't ready for reviewers to use it. And you're like, that is not the energy we're going after Samsung. Are you telling me that we should not be
Yeah, getting early access to hardware from
playing with
Samsung.
early access on Samsung devices? Because we seem to give Samsung the special consideration that, well, they're going to put out a bunch of updates. And if there's anything that's a little clumsy now, it's going to get polished up. Like, OnePlus has been doing the same. In fact, there are often times where OnePlus is ahead of the curve on a lot of these software patches and updates than Samsung is.
Hmm.
So I just want to point that out. Kind of doesn't matter if more people are liking it or if some people are saying that it's a better foldable than the Z Fold, because that's debatable. That's a personal preference.
It's a preference.
What I'm saying is, we don't act like the first days after an embargo lifts, like that's the end of the conversation and the
Oh,
conclusion
absolutely not. Yeah, no, for
of an
sure.
iPhone or a Galaxy. And I think it's irresponsible to say something's a review when you're talking about it in a form that no consumer will ever experience. No
Absolutely.
consumer is going to use the OnePlus Open in a state similar to how we reviewers were using it during this embargo window. So that's just my little soapbox. I don't need to hang on that because the rest of this has been really flippin' fun.
Yeah, no. It's one of those experiences that I think we need to taper. Yeah, I mean that was one of the reasons why I didn't push a video review of day one when the
We
embargo
haven't
lifted.
called it. We neither
Yeah,
of us
and
have put out a review
well,
yet.
no, and that's the thing. A review of a phone. Look, there is a thing to be said about unboxing and basically just getting, um, what is it called? Getting different experiences with the device based on what
Sure.
we have on the
But
software.
but I feel like both of us actually acknowledge that it's way more fun to just kind of ride the ride the way that it's supposed to be
Yeah,
experienced. Is like these are our early impressions. These are our first impressions. These are
exactly.
some early comparisons. This is like I did a video against the Duo 2. Like that's so relevant right now, but I felt like, hey, we can talk about software and things that we can learn from other platforms. So TK and I are going to be collabing
Yeah,
because that's what the hip YouTubers are doing. They do the collabs.
yeah, man,
Um,
totally.
we're going to be
Oh, it's for
bringing
real.
in more directly conversations against the Pixel Fold and the Galaxy Z Fold. We're going to have content going cross-channel. So I'll be showing up on TK's channel. He's going to be showing up
Kind of
on
like how we
mine.
did the Rokid and the X Reel. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Just trading parts of the conversation, and that way we're sort of spreading the love there a little bit. But this one really seems to be picking up consumer interest in places where I would not have expected it.
Hmm.
Like I put the phone in my mom's hands, and she doesn't realize for a while that there's anything different about this phone.
Yeah, the external display experience
It just
and
feels like
the
a
thin
regular phone.
the thinness of the phone. Like I handed my phone today to my boss during the day. I was at the office and I was testing out one of my glasses. I'm just trying to just use. I love the fact that it has video out. Let's just say that much. Although
Yeah.
nobody mentions it because apparently it's not a feature. And I handed him the phone and he had no idea that I handed him a foldable. Like he didn't say like, wait, what kind of
Mm-mm.
phone is this? Nope. He held it. He turned it around, looked at it, and
It's
basically
kind of
never
a stealth
it has
experience.
well,
Yeah.
but that's look, I'm gonna be the first person to say that I love our PR friends and I love how they get very excited about the hardware that they're launching, and typically they will hype it up. And I feel like sometimes it's overhyped. But the excitement level that I got from our friend over at OnePlus early in the year, I'm talking back in
Yeah.
March when they first hinted at
Started
it.
teasing. Yeah.
And he was like, "Dude, you're gonna love it." And I'm like, "No, I'm with you. I'm very excited. I just want to see." But I got back
This
to
has
him a couple of
been
days ago, and I'm like, "Dude,
we're
you were
we're, we're going to
right."
give you some BTS here,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
we're because often we're airing our dirty laundry and we're using this as therapy. Um, for the last 2-ish years, I feel like OnePlus PR for North Americans, the arm of OnePlus that talks to folks like TK and I,
Hmm.
they have not been lit up about their own products. The OnePlus 10 Pro had a very awkward launch in North America.
Hmm.
It was a very soft launch. We were only going to get the 128. Okay, I guess we can do a 256. It really felt like there wasn't a cohesive vision in this transition of
Yeah.
what OnePlus was going to be to carriers and what OnePlus was going to sell directly, and it was really, really confusing. I have to admit to being a little disappointed that the OnePlus 11 is a very good phone, but it's not the Pro that I would have wanted as a follow-up to the OnePlus 9. The OnePlus
Yes.
9 I still think is peak OnePlus. That is still one of my all-time favorite OnePlus phones
It
for
was
just
the peak of the
how,
buildup that they were going with. Yeah, exactly.
for sure. I feel like the launch of the OnePlus 11, the PR teams were also similarly like, we think this is going to be a good phone. We think people are going to like it. We've made, some targeted
It still
compromises,
is.
very
There is.
measured.
Yeah, it is still a good solid
It's
phone.
still a good
Yeah.
phone. But you kind of talk about it in that tone, like, oh, it's still going to be a good phone. It's going to be a good phone. It's a good phone. It's a good phone. It's fine. It's fine. It's telling when PR is like setting their expectations for you even higher in that pre-conversation, where our communications with OnePlus PR were like, you're going to like this.
Yeah, but this,
This
yeah,
is going to be
like
exciting.
that
Like
straight
they
look.
were getting kind of giddy about it.
Yeah, like almost like I wish you knew what I know kind of thing. Like, and I'm like, but you know what I mean? Like, and you always want to set you always want to taper your excitement because it is truly till the
It's
point
their
of like
job to get
it.
people lit up
Yeah, because
about
absolutely.
stuff.
No, I'm with you. But there was something different though. Like I swear to God, I think like the level of excitement he was exerting was at a different level.
Yeah.
And it got me excited but concerned a little bit at the same time. I mean, obviously Oppo
Hmm.
announced theirs as well. It was a yeah, the long story is this. It is a highly anticipated, very well received, and very welcomed device. It is a definitely a disruptor in the market of foldables when it comes down to what we have in the U.S. market right now, and the functions and everything that we've seen here, although have their own flavor. Like I love the fact that they didn't just get out the gate with, "Hey, here's a big display, and you have the same interface as you have as your regular phone. It's
Yeah.
stretched." They put purposely built-in functions, multitasking, in a different way. Like people will not like. I assure you this much: you put a fold, you put a OnePlus Fold, sorry, an Open and against a Fold, and you're going to see a very stark difference in multitasking, how they're
Yeah.
approaching multitasking. I still think, obviously, Samsung still has DeX, which I feel like like we
Yeah.
really need more competitors in that market. But yes,
For sure.
it is an exciting thing for us. I'm very happy, very excited about the OnePlus Open, and of course, with the fact that we finally have the day one update. Now it's fully retailed. I was able to set up my Google Pay in there. Now I can fully functionally transition to it.
Yeah.
I think
It's
that's
kind
the
of hard
biggest
when you
thing.
can't really live out of it and you're calling it a review. Like,
It just, yeah, I mean,
there's some core
and we talked
functionality
about it.
here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, with the update, and so here's the thing. What I was trying to lead into is saying, now that we finally have the update on the day one launch, I think we would still need a
Hmm.
little bit more time to kind of basically reconcile what we were experiencing with the pre-release software and what have been
For
fixed
sure.
now.
I feel like now is a fair spot to start calling videos reviews, though.
Yeah,
And I also feel like the contribution to the conversation is even better when consumers can weigh in. The people who actually spent their money on these things
yeah,
can
yeah,
weigh
and they're
in.
starting to get them today. I think
And
today and tomorrow
today
they're starting
today
getting in.
is OnePlus Open Day. I mean, we
Yeah,
had even Mr. Pass 101 got his OnePlus Open today.
nice.
So now again, it's like the same thing that I said with some previous Samsung and iPhone launches. I'm not fans of those brands, but it it bothers me that the way that our social media and video platforms ratchet algorithms on popularity,
Hmm.
you don't get a good accounting of how these things are really performing day to day from the people who spent their money on them, because the conversation is technically over according to Google Trends
The
and Google
algorithm,
Analytics.
sadly, yeah, there's a shift, there's a gear shift kind of going on slightly. It's like
Yeah,
moving on to the next hotness. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. And
exactly. And now I feel like into next week, that's where I feel a bit more confident that I can say this is a review. I am reviewing now what I feel this phone is good at, where I feel it might still have some issues.
Mm-hmm.
No one, I don't think anyone's really nailed foldables completely yet. Every single device has its own metaphor for how
There's
it's organizing
there's
information.
exactly there's pluses. It's a flavor, right? It's their version,
Yeah.
their vision, not version, but their vision of what a foldable should be. I feel like they checked off a lot of boxes, definitely a lot of
Hmm.
boxes that I've been wanting other companies. And I always love to speak to the availability in the US market, because that's pretty much what's going to be I mean, so the Open and the N3 are available in different markets, and it sounded like the N3 and the Open won't be competing in specific market. So if you're getting
Nope.
one or the other, whatever market you're in, if you're in the US, it's going to be very few players. I mean, as you talked
Yeah.
before, we have the Open, we have the Pixel Fold, and then we have the Z Fold. Really, those are the
Yep.
three big foldable phones in the US market. There isn't really anything else. The flip market, now we have a little bit more competition on Motorola side. So I think where it's going to start shining in is obviously is durability, serviceability, and of course support. How does that
Hmm.
carry over as time goes on? Um, Technically, and I do want to emphasize this, this may be the first OnePlus branded foldable phone. This is the third foldable phone that
Oppo.
Oppo has
Yeah.
released, and this is a generational upgrade. So although we maybe we don't want to like, well, this is their Gen 1. It's not a Gen 1, my friend. This is not hardware like this does not show up at Gen
Well,
1 this
and
polished.
increasingly, what I think we all should be hoping for is a
Yeah.
unified Oppo. So
I'm hoping at some
if
point we
there's
just drop the you know what I mean? Like,
no, I
well,
mean
the
keep the
labeling can
label,
change.
because
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm saying it
we
like
have this inroad where North Americans know of this brand OnePlus.
yeah,
Some of them do anyway.
yeah.
So the next Find X that comes out, Find X7, just change the label on the
Oh my
box
God. I really
and
want the
call
7
that
Pro to come
the
out and then come out
OnePlus
with it.
12 Pro,
Yeah, exactly.
and you're good.
Go back, go
But I
back
mean,
to
like,
to
again,
that naming scheme. Yeah, exactly. Which is what they used
we're
to do.
watching the competing brands of BBK. We've got the Vivo side and we've got the Oppo side. And if the
Yeah.
Oppo side can unify and use OnePlus as like this aggressive, low price online sales targeted kind of solution now, where they're going boutiquey again. They're not going for the big carrier deals like they had with the 6 and the 7. This is the strategy that I'd really like to see them employ. Use the
Yeah.
OnePlus label as sort of the Trojan horse to get Oppo into North America without all the scrutiny of, oh, a Chinese brand is trying to infiltrate America. Well, guess what? They're already here.
They've been
Oh
here for
no.
over for over 10
They've
years,
been
10,
here
12
for a
years.
while and the phones are
I
kind of
know.
great. Oh gosh.
No, no. And I think that but the only thing that I would have to say that I really wish we did have on the OnePlus Open is, although we have a synergy across everything else, where if you
Hmm.
hold a OnePlus Open and an N3, you really find other than the label on the back, it's really hard to find the differences where one is
Sure.
one and one is the other. From a camera science, very close. We didn't do a lot of heavy testing, but in the few samples that I was able to take, at the time I was in Singapore, some of the people I was hanging out with had access to the N3, which obviously would be a great time. But again, we were both running pre-release software.
Sure.
We were able to replicate the images almost to a T. Like it was as if the
Hmm.
picture was taken from the same phone. So that
Yeah.
made me very happy. Where we are missing one thing, which I really wish we had, which was I was hoping this to get, maybe if they rebranded it to be called it OnePlus Share, or something to
Hmm.
represent Oppo Share, because of the fact. I mean, again, this is a purely a me problem. I love
Sure.
my Find X6 Pro. Okay, and I'm actually, so weirdly, I'm not gonna admit too hard for it, but I'm starting to shift to use more of the OnePlus Open than they're using the Find X6 Pro.
How
Even
dare
though
you?
the 6 Pro has the 1 inch sensor, you got to remember it's accessibility and functionality. I have nearby share. I have all the functions that I want to use
Hmm.
as out of what I always end up being. I have to upload my pictures to Google Drive, or upload them to Photos, then re-download them or connect it to my
Hmm.
Mac and try to figure out whatever that song and dance and the smoke signals that I have to send over to to Tim and all of that to allow me to transfer my data. Um, it is very much it's about accessibility. Like the 13 Ultra,
Yeah.
one of my biggest gripes is I can't share things outside of either directly to another Xiaomi, which works beautifully. Xiaomi transfer
Sure.
works really nice. I wish we had Oppo Share on this, and that would have kind of brought the full circle back. But there are so many things that I think a lot of people are not even talking about what the OnePlus Open can do. Like nobody almost was mentioning the fact that it has video out. Like that's a
Yep.
feature that's like almost like
Video
being
out is
it is
huge.
huge with the
And
market of what we're
it handles the cover to inner screen
the
transitions
aspect
so
ratio.
well.
Yeah. It
I
is.
it
Yeah.
doesn't blink. It's just so performant. It has an IR blaster. It has
Oh, what are
real
those? Yeah, it's like
fast charging.
that. Okay,
It's
there was an update by the way to the IR blaster, which was I'll say this in my early version that I was when I was playing before launch, I could not
Mhm.
get it to control my Samsung my Samsung TV. Hold on,
That
can we get
reads.
it?
That tracks.
Hey, it works now. Hey, congratulations, party time. Oh,
You had to buy a OnePlus TV, obviously.
I wish we could. I've seen those. I've played with them before. MediaTek had them when at the first summit that they had back in Coronado back in 2019, I want to say. They
Mhm.
brought in a OnePlus TV from India.
Yeah.
They even had, and MediaTek is also in Peloton. It does like that was the other thing.
Yeah,
Peloton
that's right.
bikes. Yeah, they're in Peloton. But my experience with the Open has been so far it's a learning experience. It's a little bit different.
Mhm.
I've had to also adjust to the fact that I cannot, or I don't think I can't. I won't be able to enjoy my custom launcher on this as well as I've
Yeah.
used to on other devices. And I'm
It's like
specific
every generation of Android itself seems to get a
is
bit more hostile to
yeah,
launchers, and then
we're going
these
in a weird
skins
direction. Yeah,
are so
they're
like
good.
what the amount of custom code that you have to run for a Z Fold, for
Hmm.
a Pixel Fold, or for a OnePlus Open makes the custom launcher even less capable at navigating those different until like Nova Launcher can figure out how to be more screen aspect
Friendlier to
ratio
native. Yeah,
aware.
yeah.
It's going to be a massive challenge having that kind of customization on these devices again. I think
I
it's going to be a while before
it
people
will be,
can
and I
catch it
think
up.
my only thing about it is with the Z Fold, I've lived with it and I've accepted the loss of the dock because I preferred using Nova on the Z Fold. And I'm not going to hide the
Yeah.
fact that I mean I don't mind. I like One UI launcher, and I think they have a lot of customizations, especially with Good Lock and all the functions that they can do.
Hmm.
But when it comes down to the areas of just the way Nova runs for me, I feel like that approach is much better. On the Open, I've been using it with the default launcher. I have Nova installed, and every time I install it, depending on what software update we got with the pre-release version, different things were
Hmm.
borked. Like with the latest version that we got, the recents just does not want to work now. Now I just get slivers of
Mm.
recents whenever I install custom launcher. So I'm just going to default to the stock launcher. It is very well customizable, and I've gotten used to the paged approach to the home screens as opposed to the bigger canvas of what we're used to using with, let's
Yeah.
say, Samsung and so on. But yeah, I want to test it out. The weather's getting a little bit better. We're going to get some sun this weekend. Maybe we'll do some stuff with it tomorrow too when we get a chance to hang out, and we'll do
For
some
sure.
collaborations this weekend or something like that.
Yeah,
I
we'll
want to.
definitely be chatting about some of those.
Oh, dude, for sure.
Um, I just feel like there's an intro to this conversation that I think is very positive
Yeah.
for OnePlus. I feel OnePlus has earned a consideration that a lot of people don't really ever give them,
Hmm.
and that's before we started talking about Samsung and Google expanding software support out to longer and longer time frames.
Yeah.
OnePlus was actually the company that was more aggressively updating their devices and offering longer support. I think we kind of forget that. And when we start looking at all the little bits and pieces, like the brighter screen, the improved hinge, 512 gigs of storage, some of the best camera sensors available on any foldable.
Yep.
It's got real fast charging, not fake North American fast charging. It even has the little alert slider so that you can customize
They
if
brought
it's
that
making
back.
like
Yep.
piece by piece by piece by piece. This is one that I've been more impressed by than what I was expecting. I know Mr. Pass 101 here in our chat is also a duo nerd like I am.
Yep.
And this is the foldable that has really earnestly started pulling me away from relying on my duos as my walk around the house mini tablets.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that I wish that we could still crib from Microsoft, but they're making some really smart decisions here on OnePlus. And I think we're going to be in for an interesting evolution, because it looks like this is a platform that they're hoping to bring innovation to.
Yeah.
That it's not just, we've released a product, this is the state that it's always going to be in, it's done, this pie's been baked.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be as groundbreaking as Google is with their feature drops. But it seems like OnePlus is looking at this as an innovation platform, knowing that this is their halo product. This is their crown jewel, best of everything that they can offer.
And
device.
they treated it as such. They made sure
Oh, that's how they're talking about this, as the best piece of everything that we have to offer.
It is a culmination of everything.
In the open.
It's like a build up for the last 12, 11 years of whatever they've been, all the things that they've been doing, and everything that we've heard them, let's say maybe remove, bring back, change around, put around. No, all of that, it was locked in. Honestly, with the exception of the software, the hardware was very solid. And again, I don't want to hype it up like I make it sound like I'm a chill or something. No, this is truly out of appreciation and of usage. We've used,
but it's refreshing to have the competition. Like, that's why I want to get excited. You make some of these caveats because Google is in a touchy situation with the Pixel Fold. I actually really like the form factor of the Pixel Fold better in terms of orientation than the OnePlus Open. But there's so much more about the Open that I prefer, that
for me
I'm picking it up
out is the weight
more than I'm picking it up the Pixel Fold.
The Fold.
And the weight
for me,
is absolutely
the weight for me
one
on
of those,
when I first held the Fold, the first thing that struck me was like, wow, this is heavier than I thought it was going to be.
Sure.
That was the first thing. But not that you want a foldable that just like, you like blow on it and it flies. I know that's what we're driving towards, and I feel like a lot of companies have done that.
It'll just be like a clear plastic scroll that you just like open. It'll be like, what was that terrible Mars movie where that was the computer of the future, was like a scrolling screen thing.
Dude, I'm watching the show on Prime right now called Upload. I don't know if you've got to ever.
Yeah, I know Upload. Yeah, it's actually kind of a cute show, and they have the phone, like the hand phone.
Yeah, the phone holds like basically just. And essentially, it's supposed to be basically a wristwatch that kind of
has a hologram projector.
And it projects to the watch, and then so your phone is always like this. Totally makes sense, like to interact in that form factor. And please, if anybody's watching, please make sure to make that happen, because I'd like that.
Sure.
But the approach of what we have, it's the size, it's the flexibility. It does not feel like when I have it in my pocket that I'm holding two phones in there. It does. It still feels thicker. I'm not going to deny the fact that obviously, and
but it's light enough.
It is
that
light enough.
The thickness just feels like a chunky case. It doesn't feel like two phones in your pocket.
Yeah, it feels like it's a phone with a case on it right now. That it doesn't feel like a lot of my growing pains that we've had, and we've had improvements over the years with different versions of foldables. To me right now, with the exception of Xiaomi, because I haven't had a chance to check it out, I will say that Honor's V2 has to be the thinnest, lightest. Like, I swear to God, like I feel like that phone will fly. That's how light I felt.
It's a frisbee.
It is absolutely a frisbee. Honor will take the crown for me when it comes down to that experience, but I'm going to say it from out of the door with the way they've done the software, the recent files, the access to the app drawer, the multitasking. Those are some serious innovations and move in the right direction. I feel like. I think Honor is in a.
They're born out of, we've got to solve these problems on how you use a foldable.
Yeah,
and every company has come up with different solutions to do that. But I really like what OnePlus is attempting. Yeah. Some of it probably won't stick.
We'll have to see how
it's the necessary step, because we won't learn what works better until a few of these ideas fail. Yeah. But I really like, again, because I'm like you, we could probably start wrapping up the show, and I want to talk about this little mini PC here too.
No, absolutely. I was trying to.
I feel like
a good transition.
OnePlus has arrived at the most accessible competitor to the Z Fold.
Yes.
This is a sticky spot for the Pixel Fold. The Pixel Fold is in no way a bad device.
It isn't.
I really like it. I think it's well built. Yeah. But Google has a problem just in the pure nuts and bolts mechanics practicality, because none of these things are really practical. They're fun and they're exciting and they're tip of the spear. I still feel like they're kind of public beta tests, but they're getting really good.
Yeah.
But when you buy the OnePlus Open, you are getting the best of every experience that OnePlus can make.
Yeah.
It is the best cameras sold on a OnePlus device right now. It is the best performance. The OnePlus Open somehow, and this to me is kind of like magic considering the compromises of a foldable, but in every test that I run on it, the OnePlus Open is capable of outperforming the OnePlus 11. The charging is similar, so you have no compromise in fast charging here for North America.
Nope.
It's like every single piece. You get things back, like video output. It outperforms the OnePlus tablet. It's the only OnePlus that comes in a storage size of 512 gig.
And it only comes out
every piece of it.
Level storage, yeah.
Every piece of it is better than any other OnePlus product currently being sold.
It's uncompromised OnePlus. That's the best way I can describe it. It's uncompromised, yeah.
Google can't say the same.
Yeah.
For the price of a Pixel Fold, you can get a Pixel 8 Pro with a more refined Tensor SoC.
Yep.
And you can get a Pixel tablet with the speaker dock and have a smart display that turns into a tablet and still save cash over buying the Pixel Fold. And that to me is one of those psychological hooks. If you really like the Google experience and you really like what a Pixel has to offer and you really want a foldable, then the Pixel Fold is the price of entry. But you've got to get your brain around it's not going to perform as well. It's going to run a little hotter than a Pixel 8 Pro. And you've got to pay that high premium for the foldable and the hinge and everything. You don't have to have any of those internal conflicts on the OnePlus.
No.
Even the Z Fold can kind of fall into that trap where, you know, it's more expensive than an S23 Ultra.
Yeah.
And the S23 Ultra is going to have better cameras. That doesn't exist in OnePlus land.
No.
In OnePlus land, the best part of everything that OnePlus has to offer is currently on the OnePlus Open.
For 2023, absolutely, and hands down. And I think that's the reason why we're excited about it. It's because we've done the song and dance. We've done the two-step, you know, one step forward, two step back kind of thing going on with many years. Again, the fact that we have video out, something that we lost entirely from the beginning of 2022 with the 10 Pro, because the 10T at the end didn't have that. Or it is like I said, it's refreshing, it's appreciative, and I was very pleased to be able to not only match but maybe even exceed my excitement once I got the hardware than to our friend over at the PR team, because I feel like I'm now more excited than him. I feel like he's like, so it's great, we're happy, we're, you know, all the little like
for him it's like the relief, like I'm finally done like launching this product and we're like, we're just getting started.
I know, the excitement I felt like, yay.
So I don't want to spend too much time on this because it literally I just started setting it up yesterday. You know what never gets old is when you get a new computer, a new Windows machine.
Oh, nice.
And you plug it in.
Yeah.
And you start setting it up. You put in like your Microsoft account, do all that stuff, and it does a thing where it says, "Hey, I'm searching for updates." You're like, "Okay, cool. Windows 11 is going to update itself before I have to worry about using the machine." You're like, "That's great."
Makes sense, yeah.
And then you get it all set up, and then you go into your Microsoft Store, and it updates a whole bunch of apps.
Okay.
And then you tell it to check again. And then it seems to find more apps to update. And then you go into your settings and you say, "Hey, did you really update Windows? Because you seem to have a ton of cumulative updates and patches to run. So let's run those." And then it reboots that whole thing and you're like, "Great. So I must be done now." Oh no, now I've got to go back into the Microsoft Store and re-update all of the apps from the cumulative updates and I'm in 3 different places updating all of the software.
Oh my God, yeah.
So I finally finished that whole dance where this box has rebooted like 4 times to finish all the updates in the store. But this is the Ace piece. I'm going to make myself.
Wait, hold on a second. Big. That's the actual. Okay.
I don't want to make you too little. Where'd I go?
I don't know, but we're looking at your inbox.
No, that's not what I want. Stop it. No.
Let me. I removed that one from there.
There we go. Okay. I fixed it.
No.
It only took me 12 tries. So this is the Ace PC. My main criticism so far is I feel the name is a little unfortunate for English speakers because it's the WizBox. So that's not a great name, but
Maybe
the
it's sponsored by Wiz
WizBox G.
Khalifa. I'm sorry, did that
So
badly. I
no.
like the
Oh,
design. I'm not gonna say
it,
it would.
if they had that. So this is another one of these builds where it's an upright mini PC mini tower.
It looks like it
It's got
opens.
this.
Does it open?
So we're gonna get to
Yeah.
that. The thing I like about these and a few of these others, so Ace Magician also sells a similar form factor. I bet you it's almost exactly the same frame.
Mhm.
Ace PC and Ace Magician, we probably shouldn't be too surprised that there are a lot of overlap on some of the hardware and features. But one of the things that I like is outside of Windows. So if you were to get this box and install a Linux build or something like that on it, they've got this built-in rocker switch on the power button that completely changes the fan profile.
Oh.
And that's built into the hardware. So if you want it to run almost
speed.
completely near silent,
Oh, okay.
you can kill that fan. Your box is gonna throttle if you try and hit it with heavy computing tasks, but it's gonna run real quiet. But if you know you're gonna go into gaming, you just flick it over. This like glows red, and all the RGB start changing colors and stuff.
This is
But
like back in the day, bringing back the turbo button, man.
turbo button.
I'm having flashbacks right now to like '94. Wow, what happened?
Absolutely, I knew you because you're an old guy like me. You would appreciate turbo button. So it's it's a very simple machine, but one of the reasons why I'm excited about this is that this is one of the least expensive solutions to get the new AMD 7735HS.
Nice. Okay.
So it's their upper mid-range, not quite a Ryzen 9, but it's in that Ryzen 7 territory.
Not bad. Yeah, integrated.
I haven't done a whole lot with it.
Yeah.
But where Intel Nooks, from even just a year or two ago, would struggle with, say, AAA titles, with a little bit of graphics setting manipulation, these Ryzens are surprisingly good. And so the last one I reviewed was a 5800 HS.
Okay, yeah, I remember
and we were getting into 1080p gaming. Like it could run Tetris Effect in 1080p at 60 frames per second with all the eye candy on. Like that kind of blows my mind. We were just starting to almost get playable frame rates for games like Control.
Yeah.
And that is huge.
That is huge.
So
that game is a massive resource hog. Yeah.
Another generation newer, and actually technically 2 generations newer, but in terms of the laptop-y style chips. But the other thing that's kind of cool is this is a toolless chassis to get to your RAM and your storage. So let me just kind of pop. It's just magnets at the top, and then the whole side panel comes off, and you can get to your RAM and SSD.
And you even have the
and it also has
right there. Oh, the heat.
So the heatsink right there. Yeah, so that's the SSD and NVMe SSD, and then it also has space if you want to pop in a SATA drive.
Oh.
So this whole cavity right here.
The Geekom that I got actually also had like it's a different configuration, more like stacked a little bit, but
so the Geekom,
really cool.
the Geekom is that slightly more classic Nook style.
Yeah.
The thing I like about this upright panel is this entire section right here is fan. So if you think about the Geekom has that little fan.
Yeah.
That sits. So your airflow is vertical, but it's a much smaller unit. Much smaller fan to get air through. Here, the blower is a lower pitch and is so much quieter than that traditional Nook form factor.
Is it like a full 120 or what are we talking about? Can you? How big of the fan?
Oh, the size of the fan, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So this like entire unit is heat sink and airflow out. I'd have to disassemble the side panel to figure out what size the fan is. But we're talking mini PC. When it spins up, it's not as whiny or as rockety as a laptop, obviously, because those laptop fans are going to be a lot smaller. But it's bigger than a Nook style fan, so it's just a more pleasant sound, because it's also a lower pitch because of the larger fan diameter.
And it seems like it'll blow air to the back as well, because I see the exhaust opening.
Oh, yeah.
Next to the eye.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it's pulling air vertically through this entire chassis in a way that I think is not more efficient, but I think it's just a little bit better at cooling than the stacked smaller Nook form factor.
Better for that turbo
490
button that we there. But yeah.
and you've got the turbo. So if you want to just turn the fan up so that you're pre-cooling that hardware more aggressively, 32 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage, that AMD 7735, 499.
Dude.
499, and it comes pre-installed with Windows 11. Like,
And you get
that's,
a license for Windows 11 also included in that. That's actually really
it's
nice.
pretty good.
Mini PCs,
Because
dude, I'm telling you, man, it's
the
crazy.
2-generation old 5800, you can find like on some really aggressive sales and like if you really shop it well, you can find it sub $400 with coupon codes and stuff. But it's really more like MSRP 450. 2-generation newer Ryzen chip, 499. I mean, our generational windows on these mini PCs could be like $30.
For $30 you could jump, so you can jump different levels.
Right?
And while we're talking about mini PCs and just kind of like in general things kind of going on, one of my biggest things, and I'm going to make it super quick because I know we're hitting that 2-hour mark that normally that 90-minute session. One of the biggest things I had to deal with when I first transitioned over from my regular Ford to the Tesla was the loss of my Android Auto. It was a big thing because I actually like Android Auto, not only because of the integration that I had with it with my phone, and I had access to all my music and everything that I wanted, my internet connection, all of that. But it was a reliable service that I loved, and actually one of the reasons why I even picked out the Ford. But Tesla for me was more about the tech and everything in it, but it had none of that. It relied on Google services when it came to maps, but it didn't really have anything else. And then to top that off, you had to pay $10 a month to be able to get the bells and whistles into that. The reason why I'm mentioning this is as of last Friday, as of I came back for my trip, I am now able to run Android Auto on my Tesla. And if I really want to, I can technically run CarPlay, but I don't really want CarPlay. But the hardware is very much a la basically just running like a small mini PC in the car that runs Android, and it runs basically, I think for the most part, if I'm not mistaken, I think they cloned a Pixel 5. I think that's what Google recognized the hardware as, because when I logged into it, it was like, "Welcome to you. I hope you enjoy your Pixel 5." I'm like, "Pixel 5? I didn't buy a Pixel 5." But it runs. It's beautiful. I have split screen now. My maps are all up to date. I don't have to pay services. I don't have to pay anything. I get traffic, all of that stuff, integration into Google services, and it just runs so nice. I'm working on a video for it because there was a little bit of growing pains. The PC itself has the power to run Android Auto fully on it, but it's just so slow. It's not very well optimized. But if you want to run CarPlay, if you want to run Android Auto via the wire, I think CarPlay is supported wire and wirelessly. Android Auto is not wireless yet, but it will be in a future update. Once that function is there, dude, this is a game changer for me. The ability of having this level of fun in a car and bringing in Android in there, it's a big one.
It's incredible how much, because we're looking at, there are going to be some Android PCs that are coming out. Who's the other one? Not Geekom. They did the Access. Azul. Yeah. Azul is making an Android-based mini PC.
I thought
and they're also updating some of their Windows PCs with lower power hardware and stuff.
Yeah.
I have to believe that like this move to Windows on ARM is gonna skyrocket with these kinds of ultra, like Zotac just came out with a small form factor build that uses that new solid state cooling. So it's that card that is like this high vibration airflow thing that expels heat from your CPU. And they're saying like, well, what we can do in an even smaller chassis looks like if you had this kind of PC tower with these kinds of fans. Like, this whole market, the ability to do what you just described, like putting this compute brain thing.
It's running on a Raspberry Pi, by the way. I don't want to make it oversell it. This is running.
No, but that's just it. Is like, especially New Pi got a huge shot in the arm in terms of compute power. We've been playing with like the mini brains for our AR glasses. I do want to show it because I finally dug it out of the box. If you'll pardon me going big here again. So here's the WizBox, and in terms of the difference in fan size, here's the Geekom.
Yeah.
That
I know. It's like,
so so the Geekom is dramatically smaller than the WizBox.
yeah.
So the Geekom is going to be better if you want to bolt it to the back of a monitor or TV and kind of have that
Well,
experience.
it has
But
its own Visa mount as well. The option
yeah,
for that. Yeah.
but that's also where I feel like if you have this kind of mini tower, that's one of the reasons why these things can have this adjustable preset fan speed, fan firmware, and that the sound of the fan is also just nicer
Mm-hmm.
for having this extra surface area to move air through. So this is the Geekom is the more traditional Nook form factor from the
Well,
old Intel Nook
I've
series.
traveled with the Geekom before too. I feel like it's more
Yeah,
travel.
they're super teeny.
Well, yeah, because you can get it like a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, like
Yeah,
the Logitech ones, and a mouse, and you could just literally plug it into any desktop. I think when I went to Motorola in Chicago to see the Razr Plus and the Razr, I had the Geekom with me. I took it with me and I hooked it up to the hotel the TV, and those are the functional options. I mean, I love the TV sticks or the PC sticks that fit into the TV, but I always felt
yeah,
like those are heavily underpowered because of the limitation of
super.
there's
Yeah,
no fans, it's air cooled, and there's a
passive
lot of
cooling.
absolutely.
They run really hot to the
And it
touch.
no, no, absolutely, and those are the challenges. But then you get like a key common where I feel like the WizBox that you have has more of the mini ATX kind of flavor of it kind of going. Like we're not going mini,
Hmm.
we're going super micro nano mini. It's that level of it doesn't feel like you can mount it to the back of something. It needs to stand
No.
on a surface.
Yeah.
But from a looks though, that looks kick ass, man. That looks very much a robotic, like
I
that
think it's
really
kind of
nice
fun.
feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
This
absolutely.
is like, and and the fact that it makes that kind of almost like pyramid shape
Yeah,
to it is just kind of cool.
next time I'm over, I definitely want to check it out. I want to see it in person.
Oh
I'll be
yeah.
excited to check it out. But yeah, no, a lot of cool things going on, man. I know, and I realize I say Techtober and all of that. I'm still working on my Pixel 8 video. I want
Hmm.
to. So I mean, we got the Pixel 8, and then and then right after that I left. It was literally like I got it, then I went on a trip. So I've traveled with it. I've had experiences with it. There's been some good, some interesting experiences. I'm not going to say bad. Because it's not a Pixel issue. It's a reliance on third-party services that are hindering my experience on how the experience was on the Pixel. So, in all, and of course, in the fact that it's a 128 gigs of storage, I'm still working on that video for next week. I may, and I'm only going to tease it. I may have a surprise video on the OnePlus Open, and when I mean surprise, I'm going to say mean a surprise that I think almost nobody else has put out a video on, and I don't want to say too much
Really?
about it because
Hmm.
I need to wait for a package to show up. So once that package shows up,
It's on like Donkey Kong.
it will be on like Donkey Kong, my friend. I will
Well,
be
I've got a Pixel 8 video going out tomorrow. It's very
good.
casual. I'm not calling it a review. It is sort of 2 weeks into the experience of
It's going
using
to be
it,
the
really having my
same
SIM card
experience.
in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I'm trying to live my truth of criticizing other reviewers who rush to satisfy algorithms, and not playing the same game just for extra clicks and stuff. So
Yeah.
we'll have some Pixel. Both of us are gonna have some Pixel 8
No,
commentary
absolutely,
coming out, and
and
then
I want to do some more, as as we talked about, just the OnePlus Open as well, with the
oh yeah,
updates. Yeah, kind of circle back on that because
yeah,
the
we're
conversation's about
definitely going to
updates.
be working on that pretty aggressively because we both are getting really excited for some of these comparisons. Yeah, we've
No,
got a ton of stuff to now like follow up the conversation, even though all of this stuff is launched. And we're only now going to be starting to shift to some of like the gift guides and some of the other fun electronics.
oh
I
man,
have some
yes.
stuff embargoed that it's
Thanksgiving.
more,
I can't believe
yeah, it's going to
Thanksgiving.
be
Dude,
Black Friday
what is
stuff,
today's the
and
26th? Yeah,
yeah,
it's in less than a
there's
month.
a lot.
It's about a month now.
But some fun toys and some other things that aren't like traditional just phone computer things. I'm talking to another brand about some also like some bioelectronics for sort of hacking your mind with wearable tech.
Okay,
That could
okay.
be kind of fun because I like experimenting on my own brain.
Juan
So
Brainiac, is that what we're gonna go with?
no,
Juan,
probably
Juan Brainiac.
the point is kind of not to do that. So hopefully it doesn't turn me into a super villain.
Just get the whole kind of concept. No, I'm with you. I do have a video coming out tomorrow morning. It'll be on the creative. This is never gonna focus. Forget about it. My first bone conduction headphones. Like I've seen you use them, and I'm
using them right now.
No, absolutely. And I've been rocking them for about almost 2 weeks now. And one of my biggest things, it's going to be the silliest thing, but the color of this headphones is pretty much what sold me on them. It's that blue, the navy blue and orange, the Goku colors of everything. But it's also made by a company that we both grew up. Make it sound old. Anyways, welcome on this two old guys talking about
Sound Blaster.
Creative. Do you remember Creative Labs back in the old days with the Sound Blasters? So
do I know Creative? I still have my cinema headphones right here. So these are the Creative. So they said it's Sex-Fi. I don't think it is. I say XF.
Hold on, is it a German name?
X-Fi.
Did they go with the Zex?
No. So it's SXFI, and while I had a Qualcomm, a creative representative at Newegg, they said
Zex-Fi.
We call that Sex-Fi.
Oh, they actually call it Sex.
So, you understand, we're about to do this Newegg live show.
And I'm about to try to say
you want us to call it Sex-Fi, and they were like, yes. So this was like my go-to wireless. It has the USB puck for like zero latency, creative spatial sound. Before Apple was doing spatial audio, Creative was doing the most impressive work in managing this kind of virtual surround sound stuff. So yeah, I like Creative never really left.
They didn't leave.
Although these are kind of dusty.
What I meant to say more so was as time went on, I stopped looking into purchasing additional sound cards for my PC. As PC builds over the years has gone more progressive.
I went external.
Yeah. And I've gone, well, because there's not much of a need to put in okay, so you're limited by space, but it's also because of the fact that, it was an extra expense that you generationally didn't really need to keep upgrading every single time. You could basically stick with the same as long as you had the hardware that you needed. So
although if you remember the Audigy with the breakout box, I ran that for 3 different PC builds.
Oh wow,
that was a great card,
dude. Okay, yeah, but for me,
anyway,
when I originally swapped it, I took it in with my capture cards because I was trying to use more capture cards in there, and those take us some space. But this one is my first pair. It's the Outlier Free Pro Plus edition. So this is their top of the line. Water resistant, swim capable Bluetooth headset that you're able to use with multi-point. Very exciting. One of the very few headsets I've actually enjoyed taking showers with, which is just absolutely crazy. The ability of the fact that this actually also works while you're swimming is next level with the built-in MP3 and storage built into the actual headset.
And I cannot stress enough how dangerous it is to use traditional earbuds around water.
Yeah, no.
Because if the pressure gets built up there, you're going to rupture your eardrums. But open ear earbuds don't got that problem.
And the ability of just the multitasking, and I've gone through different runs with them. I've done a lot of good things with them. I like them. And you'll get a chance to see how excited I am with it in audio and range and all of that good stuff. But it is definitely it's a good way to dip your toes in the water when it comes down to wireless, because they're not that expensive. They're actually priced pretty well.
Nice.
And for the fact that you can go swimming with them, that is just next level. If you love swimming and you want audio with you, this is it. And you don't have to rely on Bluetooth. That's the other thing because that was the first thing when I saw them. I'm like, how are you going around the fact that Bluetooth doesn't transmit through water? It just does not work. There's no audio that comes through. And it's because it's relying on built-in storage. So you can definitely experience different levels there. So I'm very happy with Creative. They sent that out.
So TK is now properly on the Sex-Fi gang.
Absolutely.
Woo, Sex-Fi.
Outlier Pro Free Pro Plus Sex-Fi. That's exactly how we are.
tkbay Sex-Fi.
Sex-Fi. With that being said, I want to say first, of course, thank you very much to everybody for hanging out with us. We are way above and beyond our normal time limit.
We needed to. It was a good show.
It is no, absolutely. It's a very well jam-packed, a lot of cool tech, a lot of cool conversations. Last week we had a lot of things going on that was a lot of fun. And this week we have way more, and hopefully next week we'll also be able to, wow you guys with some more
Yep.
embargoed stuff that we're not able to talk about yet. But with that being said, I want to say thank you very much, Juan. Thank you to everybody else as well with us, Aditya, Barry, everybody hanging in with us, Farhan, on this beautiful Thursday, the last Thursday of October 2023. We will be back with you guys next week in November. Yes, in November of 2020.
No.
This is scary. It is scary. Before you know it, Thanksgiving and all. We'll be back with you guys hopefully. Make sure to check out on Monday the SGGQA for Juan on his channel, and of course it'll also be on the same channel that you guys see us here as well. That's the reason why I always kind of loop it. And the audio version of the podcast for everybody that wants to be on the playback crew will be available hopefully within the next day or so. But dude, I hope you have fun. I hope you have a good weekend, and hopefully the weather gets nice so we can go out and play with some Open.
Let's do it.
What I mean?
Let's do it.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you guys next